The night Elena Moore's world shattered wasn't the night she lost everything. It was the night she discovered what she was truly made of. Picture this: Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, champagne towers catching crystal light, and a woman in emerald silk watching her fiancé slide a diamond ring onto another woman's hand. The cameras flash, the elite whisper, and somewhere in that crowd of vultures, a man in the shadows makes her an offer that will either save her life or end it. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. The reservation had been made 3 months in advance. Elena Moore had marked it on her calendar in gold ink, the kind of small detail that spoke to her nature as an architect. Everything precise, everything intentional, everything built to last. March 15th, Le Bernardin, 8 o'clock. The night Nathan Cole, her fiancé of 2 years, had promised would change everything. She'd believed him. God, she'd actually believed him. The emerald dress had cost more than she'd wanted to spend, but Nathan's mother had suggested the color during their last awkward lunch at the plaza. "It brings out your eyes, dear," Nathan always notices. Elena had smiled through gritted teeth and bought the dress. She'd learned early that pleasing Nathan meant pleasing his family, and pleasing his family meant swallowing her pride in carefully measured doses. The restaurant glowed like a jewel box as Elena stepped through the brass doors, her heels clicking against imported marble. She'd been here once before, celebrating the completion of her first major solo project, a boutique hotel in Chelsea that had earned her a profile in Architectural Digest. That night, Nathan had been distracted, checking his phone between courses, barely touching his Dover sole. Tonight felt different. The maitre d' recognized her immediately. "Miss Moore, Mr. Cole is waiting at your table." Her heart lifted. He'd arrived early. That was new. The dining room spread before her like a stage set, all cream linens and soft amber light. Manhattan's elite occupied the tables, old money mixing with new, power brokers and socialites performing the intricate dance of being seen in the right place at the right time. Elena had learned to navigate these rooms over the past 2 years, though she'd never quite felt she belonged. Nathan sat at their usual corner table, the one with a view of the kitchen's controlled chaos. He wasn't alone. Elena's steps slowed. A woman sat across from him, blonde and polished in the way that suggested generations of careful breeding and expensive maintenance. Her hand rested on the table between them, fingers splayed. Even from across the room, Elena could see the diamond catching light. The same diamond Nathan had shown her 6 months ago, promising it would be hers when the time was right. The maitre d' had stopped speaking. Elena realized she'd frozen mid-step, her portfolio bag sliding down her shoulder. The leather case held blueprints for the Harrison Building pitch, the project that would make or break her bid for senior partner at Morrison & Associates. She'd planned to show Nathan the designs over dessert, share her excitement about the presentation scheduled for Monday. None of that mattered now. Nathan looked up. Their eyes met across the dining room, and Elena saw something flicker across his face that might have been regret. It vanished quickly, replaced by the smooth mask he wore in boardrooms and country clubs. He stood. The blonde woman turned, and Elena recognized her from society pages and charity galas. Vanessa Hartley, daughter of Senator James Hartley, heiress to a pharmaceutical fortune, and according to last month's Town and Country, Manhattan's most eligible bachelorette. Not anymore, apparently. "Elena." Nathan's voice carried across the suddenly quiet restaurant. Conversations dimmed, heads turned. This was the moment Elena would later identify as the beginning of her destruction, when she became not a person, but a spectacle. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for coming." As if she'd been summoned to a business meeting. Elena's fingers tightened on her portfolio strap. Her mind, trained to calculate structural loads and design parameters, began assembling pieces with horrible clarity. The corner table, the early arrival, the crowd. Nathan Cole didn't do anything without purpose, and he certainly didn't break engagements without an audience. She walked forward because turning away would have been worse. Her heels struck marble with metronomic precision, each step carrying her closer to whatever carefully orchestrated humiliation Nathan had planned. "Nathan." She kept her voice level. "Who's your friend?" "This is Vanessa Hartley." He didn't touch Elena, didn't offer the kiss on the cheek that had become routine. "I wanted you to meet her." How thoughtful. Elena set her portfolio on an empty chair, buying herself a moment to breathe. Though I'm confused about why you needed a reservation at Le Bernardin for introductions. Vanessa smiled, the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. Nathan and I thought it was important to handle this properly, publicly. Handle this. Elena had designed buildings that would stand for generations. She understood foundations, load-bearing walls, the importance of structural integrity. She recognized when something was about to collapse. I see. She looked at Nathan, really looked at him, and wondered when she'd stopped seeing past the surface. The perfectly tailored suit, the Harvard ring, the easy charm that had first attracted her at a gallery opening 3 years ago. And what exactly are we handling? Nathan had the decency to clear his throat. Around them, the restaurant had gone silent. Even the waiters had paused, sensing drama. Our engagement, he said. I'm ending it. 6 words. Delivered with less emotion than he'd used discussing paint colors for his Tribeca loft. Elena heard the words, understood them intellectually, but her body seemed disconnected from her brain. Her fingers found the edge of the table, gripping white linen. You brought me here to break up with me. I wanted to be honest. Nathan gestured to Vanessa, whose left hand now rested conspicuously on the table, that massive diamond announcing itself. Vanessa and I have been seeing each other for 4 months. It started after the fundraiser gala. The one where you said you had food poisoning. Yes. No apology in his voice, just matter-of-fact confirmation. We tried to fight it, but some connections are inevitable. Her family and mine have known each other for decades. It makes sense in ways that you and I... He paused, choosing words carefully. In ways that we never quite did. The floor seemed to tilt beneath Elena's feet. 4 months. He'd been planning this for 4 months, conducting an affair while she'd been working 80-hour weeks to make senior partner, attending his family's functions, playing the role of devoted fiancé. You could have told me privately. Her voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. You didn't need to. Actually, I did. Nathan's expression hardened. You're ambitious, Elena, ruthlessly so. I've watched you build your career without concern for anything else. Do you know how many dinners you've missed? How many family events you've prioritized work over? Elena stared at him. You told me ambition was attractive. You said you admired my work ethic. I did, until I realized it meant you'd never put me first. He glanced at Vanessa, who watched the exchange with clinical interest. Vanessa understands priorities, family, legacy, the things that actually matter. Around them, phones had appeared. Elena caught the glint of camera lenses, the telltale glow of video recording. This wasn't just a breakup. It was a public execution, carefully staged for maximum impact. You bastard! The words came out quietly, but they carried. Nathan's jaw tightened. I'm being honest about what I need. If you can't handle that with dignity... Dignity? Elena laughed, the sound sharp enough to cut glass. You're lecturing me about dignity while breaking our engagement in front of Manhattan's social elite and proposing to your mistress in the same breath? Fiancé, Vanessa corrected, her voice cool. Nathan proposed last night. We wanted you to hear it from us before the announcement hits tomorrow's papers. Tomorrow's papers. Of course. Nathan had probably already drafted the press release, positioned himself as the sympathetic party who'd fallen in love despite himself. Elena could see the narrative taking shape. Ambitious career woman loses devoted fiancé to someone who actually values family. Her hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against the table, forcing them still. I gave you 2 years, and I'm grateful for them. Nathan actually had the audacity to sound sincere. You helped me understand what I really wanted. Someone who'll stand beside me, not constantly race ahead. Someone who understands that marriage is about partnership, not competition. Elena's portfolio bag chose that moment to slide off the chair, hitting the floor with a heavy thud. Blueprints scattered across marble, unfurling in a mess of graphite lines and careful calculations. The Harrison Building. 6 months of work. Her future, spread across the floor of the restaurant where her present was being systematically destroyed. She dropped to her knees, gathering papers with hands that wouldn't quite cooperate. Around her, she heard whispers rising like floodwater. always knew she was too focused on work. Nathan deserves better. Hartley connection makes so much more sense. Did you see her face when a hand appeared in her peripheral vision, offering help? Elena looked up into the face of a waiter, young and mortified on her behalf. I've got it. She shoved blueprints back into her bag, not caring about the order, not caring that one of the renderings was torn. Thank you. When she stood, Nathan and Vanessa were watching her with identical expressions of polite concern, the kind you'd offer a stranger having a minor emergency. I hope you'll understand, Nathan said, why I need to ask for the apartment key back. The Tribeca loft, the one she'd helped him choose, spent weekends furnishing, treated as their shared space, even though only his name was on the lease. Tonight? Her voice cracked. It would be easier, for both of us. Elena reached into her clutch, fingers closing around the keyring. The small silver Tiffany charm Nathan had given her on their first anniversary dangled from it. She set it on the table between them, metal clicking against china. Anything else? I think that covers it. Nathan picked up the keys, pocketed them. I've already arranged to have your things boxed and sent to your office. You should receive them by Monday. Monday. The day of her Harrison Building pitch. He'd timed even that with precision. Elena slung her portfolio over her shoulder. Her vision had narrowed to a tunnel, the restaurant's soft lighting suddenly too bright. She needed to leave, needed to get out before the trembling in her hand spread to her voice. I hope you're very happy together. She meant it to sound dignified. It came out broken. Vanessa's smile turned sympathetic. I'm sure you'll find someone perfect for you, Elena. Someone who shares your priorities. The patronizing tone snapped something fundamental in Elena's chest. She looked at Nathan one last time, this man she'd imagined building a life with, and saw a stranger wearing a familiar face. You're right about one thing, she said quietly. We never quite made sense. I just didn't realize it was because I mistook your mediocrity for potential. She turned before he could respond, walking through a restaurant that had gone silent to watch her destruction. Every step felt like moving through concrete. The maitre d' held the door, his expression professionally neutral, though she caught pity in his eyes. The March air hit her like a slap, cold and sharp. Madison Avenue stretched before her, all glittering lights and Saturday night energy. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Traffic honked. The city continued its relentless rhythm, indifferent to one woman's humiliation. Elena made it 3 steps before her knees gave out. She caught herself against a parking meter, portfolio bag sliding down her arm again. Behind her, through Le Bernardin's windows, she could see Nathan and Vanessa toasting with champagne. The blonde was laughing, head thrown back, every inch the victorious replacement. Elena's phone buzzed. Then again, and again. She pulled it from her clutch with shaking hands. Notifications flooded the screen faster than she could process them. At Manhattan. Social breaking. Nathan Cole ends engagement with architect Elena Moore at Le Bernardin, introduces new fiancée Vanessa Hartley. Social scene at NYC Light. Watch exclusive photos. Nathan Cole publicly replaces fiancé with senator's daughter. Sources say Moore's work obsession drove them apart. At page 6 Mois. Architect Elena Moore. Dumped at Le Bernardin as fiancé chooses Hartley heiress. Full story at 11. The photos loaded, her face shocked and pale, her blueprints scattered on the floor. Nathan and Vanessa's intertwined hands, that diamond catching light like an accusation. Someone had live-streamed the whole thing. Elena's phone rang. Her mother's contact photo filled the screen. She declined the call. Another buzz. Her best friend Amy. Decline. Her boss Richard Morrison. Decline. They were all watching her fail in real time. A black town car pulled up to the curb with such precision that Elena barely had time to step back. The rear window descended with a mechanical whisper. Get in. The voice came from darkness, male and commanding. Elena couldn't see the speaker's face, just the outline of broad shoulders and the glint of what might have been cufflinks catching streetlight. I'm fine, thank you. She straightened, tried to summon dignity from the wreckage of the evening. I'll catch a cab. No, you won't. The voice was certain. In about 30 seconds, the photographers currently having dinner at that restaurant are going to realize what they missed and come looking for follow-up shots. They'll find you collapsed against a parking meter, crying in a $2,000 dress. That photo will make front pages. Elena opened her mouth to argue and realized he was right. She could already hear raised voices from inside Le Bernardin, the scrape of chairs being pushed back. Who are you? Someone who understands timing. Get in the car, Miss Moore. You can hate me later, but do it from somewhere that isn't the cover of tomorrow's tabloids. The door swung open from inside. Elena looked back at the restaurant one more time. Through the windows, she could see Nathan's arm draped over Vanessa's shoulders, the two of them already deep in conversation with other diners, celebrating, moving on. She got in the car. The door closed with the solid thunk of German engineering. Leather seats, climate control, the faint scent of expensive cologne. The interior was dark except for the ambient lighting that outlined the passenger beside her. He was older than his voice suggested, maybe early 40s, with dark hair silvered at the temples, and a face that suggested Sicilian ancestry. His suit was bespoke, his watch complicated and platinum. He watched Elena with the focused attention of someone conducting an assessment. Victor Romano. He didn't offer his hand, and you're having the worst night of your life. Elena barked a laugh that sounded slightly hysterical. That obvious? Your ex-fiancé just publicly humiliated you. Your professional reputation is about to be shredded by association. And based on the Morrison & Associates logo on that portfolio, you're probably about to lose a major client presentation because no one wants an architect whose personal life is tabloid fodder. His eyes were dark, almost black in the dim light. How am I doing? Too accurate, dangerously so. What do you want? Direct. I like that. Victor settled back in his seat as the car pulled smoothly into traffic. I want to make you an offer. I'm not interested in 6 months, he interrupted. A contractual marriage. You become Mrs. Victor Romano in name and public appearances. In exchange, I provide you with financial independence, social protection, and the quiet destruction of Nathan Cole's carefully constructed reputation. Elena stared at him. You're insane. Probably. He pulled a business card from his jacket, offered it to her. Heavy cardstock, minimalist design, just a name and phone number. But I'm also serious. You need leverage. I need credibility. We help each other. Why would you possibly need credibility? You're obviously wealthy. Wealth isn't legitimacy. Victor's expression hardened slightly. I've built an empire, Ms. Moore, but certain doors remain closed to men with my background. A wife with your education, your professional credentials, your social connections, however tenuous they might feel right now, opens those doors. And in exchange, you ruin Nathan's life? I prefer to think of it as revealing his true character. Victor's smile held no warmth. Men like him succeed because people don't look too closely. I'm very good at making people look closely. The car glided through Midtown, passing towers Elena had studied in architecture school, each one a testament to ambition, vision, the audacity to build something permanent. This is crazy, she said, but her fingers had closed around the business card. It's strategic. Victor pulled out his phone, thumbed through something. The Harrison Building pitch, Monday at 10. You'll be there alone because Morrison is already considering replacing you on the project. He can't afford the negative publicity. How do you? I make it my business to know things. He showed her his phone screen, a text conversation with someone named Marcus. The latest message read, Morrison getting cold feet on Moore. Hartley family already applying pressure. May pull her from Harrison pitch. Elena felt sick. Nathan's doing this. Nathan's family is doing this. They want you erased, discredited, and forgotten before the engagement announcement goes wide tomorrow afternoon. Victor pocketed his phone. By Monday morning, your professional reputation will be damaged beyond repair, unless I'm attached to someone more powerful than the Coles. Now you're thinking strategically. Victor leaned forward slightly. Marry me for 6 months. We'll make it a public whirlwind. Powerful businessman falls for brilliant architect. Love conquers all. Very romantic. You get protection, financial security, and leverage. I get legitimacy and access. When the contract ends, we part as friends with ironclad NDAs. And Nathan? Suffers appropriately. Victor's expression could have been carved from marble. I told you, I'm very good at revealing character. By the time I'm finished, people will know exactly what kind of man he is. Elena looked down at the business card in her hands. Victor Romano. The name tugged at something in her memory. Articles about real estate development, whispers about family connections to less legal enterprises, rumors that never quite became charges. You're connected to organized crime. I prefer diversified business interests. He didn't deny it. Does that bother you? It should have. A week ago, it would have sent her running. But a week ago, she'd believed in Nathan Cole's promises. A week ago, she'd thought hard work and integrity mattered. What are the terms? She asked. Victor's smile widened fractionally. 6 months minimum. Public appearances as required. You maintain your career, I maintain mine. Separate bedrooms, separate lives, except when we're on display. At the end, a generous settlement that ensures your financial independence. Clean divorce, no scandal. And if I refuse? Then I drop you at your apartment, you deal with tomorrow's fallout alone, and we never speak again. He checked his watch, platinum catching light. But in 30 minutes, the first photos from tonight will go viral. By morning, the narrative will be set. Nathan Cole's ambitious ex-fiancé who prioritized work over love. The media will shred you. Morrison will pull you from the Harrison pitch. Your career will survive, but you'll spend years rebuilding credibility. The car was approaching Elena's building in the West Village. She could see lights in windows, neighbors living ordinary Saturday nights. Inside her apartment, the remnants of the life she'd been building waited. Photos with Nathan that now felt like evidence of her stupidity, furniture they'd chosen together, a future that had been demolished in one dinner service. I need time to think. You have until morning. Victor nodded to his driver, who pulled smoothly to the curb. Call me by 9 a.m. Yes or no? If yes, I'll have lawyers draw up contracts by noon. We'll announce the engagement by Monday morning before the Harrison pitch. If no, I'll respect your decision and we're done. Elena gathered her portfolio, that torn blueprint visible through the bag's open top. 6 months of work, 2 years with Nathan, all of it suddenly meaningless. Why me? She asked. If you need legitimacy, there are probably dozens of women who'd jump at this offer. Because you understand building something from nothing. Victor's expression softened almost imperceptibly. And because you're angry enough to do it right. Women seeking revenge are rarely boring. She opened the door, cold air rushing in. 9 a.m., Victor reminded her. One way or another, your life changes Monday morning. You can choose how. Elena stepped onto the sidewalk, her building's familiar facade offering no comfort. Behind her, the town car pulled away, taillights disappearing into traffic. Her phone buzzed again. More notifications. More photos. More strangers dissecting her humiliation for entertainment. She looked down at the business card still clutched in her hand. Victor Romano. A dangerous offer from a dangerous man. The smart choice was obvious. Walk away. Weather the storm. Rebuild with integrity. But Elena had spent 2 years being smart, being careful, playing by Nathan Cole's rules. Where had it gotten her? She climbed the stairs to her apartment, each step heavy with exhaustion. Inside, everything looked the same as it had that morning when she'd left for a haircut and last-minute dress fitting, excited about a dinner that was supposed to change everything. Nathan had been right about that much, at least. Elena dropped her portfolio by the door, blueprint spilling out onto hardwood. The Harrison building's skeletal frame mocked her with its clean lines and perfect proportions. She'd designed something meant to last. Funny how quickly permanent things could crumble. Her phone lit up with another notification. A text from an unknown number. Saw what happened. You didn't deserve that. Stay strong. Then another. Nathan Cole is trash. You're better off. And another. This is why successful women shouldn't intimidate men. Maybe focus on being marriageable? Elena turned off her phone. The apartment felt enormous and suffocating at once. She poured a glass of wine she didn't want, ran a bath she couldn't relax in, and finally collapsed on her bed, still wearing the emerald dress that was supposed to make Nathan notice. Sleep was impossible. At 2 a.m., she gave up and pulled out her laptop. Searched for Victor Romano. The results were a mix of business profiles and speculation. Real estate mogul, art collector, philanthropist with a complicated reputation. Photos showed him at galas and gallery openings. Always alone, always watching. There were hints of family connections to historical crime families, but nothing proven, nothing charged. He was right about one thing. Certain doors remained closed despite his wealth. At 4 a.m., Elena opened her email and found 37 messages about the engagement ending. Most were sympathetic. Some were cruel. Richard Morrison's assistant had sent a meeting request for Monday at 8 a.m., an hour before the Harrison pitch. She knew what that meant. At 6 a.m., she watched the sun rise over Manhattan, painting buildings in shades of gold and pink. The city was beautiful in early morning light, full of promise and ruthless in its indifference. Elena Moore had built her career on careful calculations. Risk versus reward. Load-bearing walls and structural integrity. She'd thought the same principles applied to relationships. How wrong she'd been. At 8:47 a.m., she picked up her phone and dialed the number on Victor Romano's card. He answered on the first ring. Yes or no, Miss Moore? Elena looked around her apartment one last time. At the life she'd built. The future she'd imagined. The rules she'd followed. All of it built on foundations that had turned out to be sand. Yes, she said. Let's burn it all down. Victor's lawyers arrived at Elena's apartment at precisely 10 a.m. Sunday morning, 3 of them in matching charcoal suits carrying briefcases that probably cost more than her monthly rent. They transformed her modest living room into a temporary war room, spreading documents across her coffee table with the efficiency of a military operation. Standard non-disclosure agreement, the lead attorney explained. A woman named Sarah Chen who looked like she could negotiate hostages out of a burning building without breaking a sweat. 6-month marriage contract with provisions for public appearances, media strategy, and financial arrangements. Mr. Romano has been extremely generous with the settlement terms. Elena skimmed the pages, her architect's eye catching details. Monthly allowance that exceeded her annual salary. Full creative control over her career. A lump sum payment at contract's end that would guarantee independence for years. Separate residences with a shared penthouse for official purposes. The whole thing read less like a marriage contract and more like a corporate merger. What about intimacy clauses? Elena asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Sarah didn't blink. Separate bedrooms, no expectations of physical relationship. Mr. Romano was very clear on that point. This is a business arrangement. What you do privately is your concern, provided it doesn't create public scandal. And if I want out early? Penalty clauses. Sarah flipped to page 14. Early termination costs you the settlement. Breaking NDA costs significantly more. Mr. Romano values discretion. Elena bet he did. Men with his reputation didn't become powerful by letting people talk. The engagement announcement goes live at 8 a.m. tomorrow, Sarah continued, producing a tablet with a draft press release. Before your meeting with Morrison, we've already secured exclusive coverage with 3 major outlets. By the time you walk into that Harrison building pitch, you'll be Manhattan's most talked about bride-to-be. Won't people think it's suspicious, the timing? People will think it's romantic. Sarah's smile was sharp. Successful businessman sweeps heartbroken architect off her feet in whirlwind romance. The narrative practically writes itself. Besides, Mr. Romano has been photographed at several of your building openings over the past year. We can establish a timeline that suggests you've known each other longer than the public realizes. Elena blinked. He's been at my openings? The Chelsea Hotel last spring, the Brooklyn renovation in October. He's a real estate investor, Miss Moore. He pays attention to rising talent. Sarah pulled up photos on her tablet. Victor in the background of event photos. Always watching, always alone. This isn't as sudden as it appears. It should have felt creepy. Instead, Elena found it oddly reassuring. Victor Romano didn't make impulsive decisions. He planned, calculated, built strategies with the same precision she used designing buildings. Maybe they understood each other better than she'd thought. Where do I sign? Sarah produced a fountain pen that probably cost more than Elena's entire wardrobe. Every page initialed, signature on the final page. Your attorney should review this first. I don't have an attorney. You do now. Sarah slid another card across the table. Mr. Romano has retained Marcus Webb to represent your interests. He's already reviewed the contract and approved the terms as fair, but you're welcome to seek secondary counsel if you prefer. Elena looked at the contract, thick with legalese and contingencies. Every escape route mapped, every obligation defined. It was the opposite of her relationship with Nathan, which had been built on assumptions and unspoken expectations that had crumbled the moment they were tested. This was honest, transactional, safe. She initialed every page and signed her name on the line that would change everything. Excellent. Sarah collected the documents with brisk efficiency. We'll file the marriage license Tuesday. Small ceremony Thursday at City Hall. Immediate family only. Public reception next month once the initial media frenzy dies down. Mr. Romano suggests you clear your schedule for the week. There will be interviews, photo shoots, and strategic appearances. I have the Harrison pitch Monday, which you'll attend wearing this. Sarah produced a small velvet box and opened it to reveal a ring that made Nathan's diamond look like a party favor. Emerald cut, flawless, surrounded by smaller stones that caught light like trapped stars. Mr. Romano had it sized based on photos from your previous engagement. Should fit perfectly. Elena stared at the ring. It was beautiful, impersonal, expensive enough to make a statement and cold enough to remind her this wasn't real. He thinks of everything, doesn't he? Mr. Romano doesn't leave details to chance. Sarah closed the box and set it in front of Elena. Wear it tomorrow. Let Morrison see it before he tries to pull you from the pitch. Men like him respect power, and that ring represents more power than the Cole family could dream of. After the lawyers left, Elena sat alone in her apartment surrounded by the evidence of her new reality. Contract, ring, press release that would go live in less than 24 hours. Her phone buzzed. A text from Victor. Are you having second thoughts? Elena looked around her apartment, at the spaces where Nathan's presence had been erased, at the blueprints still scattered by the door, at the future she'd thought she was building that had turned out to be a house of cards. She typed back, "Too late for that? I signed your contract." His response came immediately. "Good. Car will pick you up at 7 a.m. We're having breakfast before your meeting with Morrison. Why? Because you're going to need coffee, and I make better strategic decisions on a full stomach. Also, we should probably pretend to know each other before announcing our engagement." Despite everything, Elena smiled. "Is that your idea of romance? That's my idea of preparation. Romance is for people who believe in fairy tales. We're building something more useful." She should have been offended. Instead, she felt oddly comforted. Victor Romano wasn't pretending this was anything other than what it was. A mutually beneficial arrangement between two people who'd learned that honesty was rarer than love. 7 a.m., she confirmed. Don't be late. I'm never late, Ms. Moore. It's other people who run behind. Elena spent the rest of Sunday preparing for Monday like it was a military campaign. She chose her outfit with surgical precision, navy suit, cream blouse, the kind of understated elegance that suggested competence. She rehearsed her Harrison building pitch, until she could deliver it in her sleep. She practiced wearing the ring Victor had sent, getting used to the weight of it. And she ignored the 73 phone calls from her mother, the 42 texts from friends, and the countless social media notifications that continued to dissect her public humiliation. By Sunday night, #Elena Gets Engaged was trending, though not the way she'd once imagined. At 6:45 a.m. Monday morning, Elena stood in front of her mirror and barely recognized herself. The woman looking back was polished, prepared, wearing a ring that could probably fund a small country. She looked powerful, untouchable, nothing like the woman who'd collapsed against a parking meter 2 nights ago. The town car arrived at exactly 7 a.m. Victor sat in the back reading something on a tablet, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than her car. He looked up when she entered, his dark eyes assessing. "You look ready for war." Isn't that the point?" Elena slid into the seat beside him, maintaining careful distance. "The ring suits you." He nodded at her left hand. "How does it feel?" "Heavy, expensive, like wearing evidence." Victor's laugh was brief but genuine, accurate on all counts. "We're having breakfast at my place, more private than a restaurant, and we need to align our story before the announcement goes live." The car headed uptown. eventually pulling into the underground garage of a building Elena recognized from architectural journals. Pre-war construction, recent renovation, the kind of address that suggested wealth so old it didn't need to announce itself. Victor's penthouse occupied the entire top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of Central Park, the city spreading beyond like a promise. The interior was minimalist, clean lines, expensive art, furniture that suggested style without comfort. It looked like a magazine spread, beautiful and completely impersonal. "You don't actually live here," Elena said. Victor raised an eyebrow. "What makes you say that? No books? No photographs? No mess?" She gestured at the pristine surfaces. "This is a showroom. Where do you really live?" Something flickered across his face. Surprise. Maybe respect. "A townhouse in Brooklyn. This is for meetings and appearances." "You have a good eye." "I'm an architect. I notice how people use space." Elena walked to the windows, looking out at the park below. "You bought this to impress people you don't actually like." Guilty. Victor moved to the kitchen, started making coffee with practiced efficiency. "I bought it 3 years ago when I was trying to convince old money Manhattan that I was one of them. Turns out, you can't buy your way into circles that were closed before you were born. Hence the need for a wife with the right credentials. Hence the mutually beneficial arrangement we've entered into." He poured coffee into expensive cups, handed her one. "Breakfast is simple. I assumed you'd be too nervous to eat much." He was right. Elena's stomach was churning with anxiety about the meeting with Morrison, the pitch, the announcement that would hit in less than an hour. "Tell me about the Harrison building," Victor said, settling into a chair near the windows. "Why does it matter?" Elena sipped her coffee, perfect temperature, perfectly made. "It's a mixed-use development in the financial district, residential, commercial, public space. If we get the contract, it establishes Morrison and Associates as a major player, and it makes me senior partner." "Made you senior partner," Victor corrected gently. "Past tense. Morrison is going to try to pull you from the pitch this morning." "You seem very certain of that." "I am. The Hartley family has been applying pressure all weekend. Senator Hartley called in favors. Nathan's father made some strategic phone calls. They want you discredited and forgotten before their engagement announcement this afternoon." Elena's fingers tightened on her cup. "They're announcing today?" "At 3 p.m., big press conference, all the major outlets." Victor watched her carefully. "They're moving fast to control the narrative, which is why our announcement goes live at 8 during your meeting with Morrison. You've timed it to the minute. I told you I don't leave details to chance." He pulled out his phone, showed her the cued press release. At 8 a.m., New York wakes up to news that Elena Moore, brilliant architect, is engaged to Victor Romano, successful businessman and philanthropist. Photos of us from various events over the past year, quotes about how we connected over shared interests in design and urban development. Very romantic, very strategic. Elena skimmed the release. It was good, believable, flattering without being excessive, positioning her as a woman who'd moved on to bigger things. "You've been planning this longer than 2 days." "I've been planning various scenarios." Victor pocketed his phone. "When I saw what happened at Le Bernardin, I activated the relevant one. You're not the first talented woman Nathan Cole has tried to destroy. You're just the first one I've been positioned to help." Something in his tone made Elena look up sharply. "You know other women he's hurt?" "I make it my business to know things about people who might become useful or dangerous. Nathan has a pattern: ambitious women, brief relationships, public endings designed to damage their reputations. You're the third in 5 years." The coffee turned bitter in Elena's mouth. "And you didn't warn me?" "We'd never met. You would have thought I was crazy." Victor's expression was matter of fact. "Besides, would you have listened? You were in love. People rarely listen to warnings about people they love." He was right, which made it worse. Elena had ignored red flags, made excuses, convinced herself Nathan's demands were reasonable. She'd been so focused on making the relationship work that she'd never stopped to question whether it should. "The other women," she said quietly, "what happened to them?" "One left the city. One switched careers. One—" Victor paused. "One is still fighting to rebuild her reputation 3 years later. Nathan's family is very good at making problems disappear. But not good enough to stop you." They don't know I'm coming. Victor's smile was sharp. By the time they realize what's happening, it will be too late. You'll be protected, established, and completely out of their reach. Elena's phone buzzed with a reminder. Meeting with Morrison in 45 minutes. I should go, she said, standing. Thank you for the coffee and the strategic timing. Elena. Victor stood as well, moved closer, but maintained respectful distance. Morrison is going to try to intimidate you, make you feel small, make you grateful for whatever scraps he offers. Don't let him. I can handle Richard Morrison. I know you can, but it's easier to handle him when you remember you don't actually need him anymore. Victor gestured at her ring. That represents financial independence, career flexibility, the ability to tell Morrison to go to hell if necessary. I'm not going to, but I know you'll be professional, competent, everything you've always been. He picked up his tablet, pulled up something. But just in case professionalism isn't enough, I bought Morrison & Associates this morning. Elena's brain stuttered. You what? Well, 49% of it. The previous owner was eager to sell. Morrison doesn't know yet. The paperwork won't finalize until this afternoon. Victor showed her the acquisition documents, which means by the time he tries to pull you from the Harrison pitch, I'll be his largest shareholder. And I'll be very interested in making sure my fiancé gets the respect she deserves. You bought a company to help me keep a presentation? I bought an asset that was undervalued due to poor management. The fact that it helps you is a bonus. Victor's expression was utterly serious. I told you I was good at revealing character. Morrison has been coasting on reputation for years while people like you do the actual work. Time someone noticed. Elena should have been appalled. The manipulation, the casual exercise of power, the way Victor Romano treated the city like a chessboard and moved pieces to suit his strategy. Instead, she felt something very close to gratitude. This isn't how normal relationships work, she said. Good thing this isn't a normal relationship. Victor walked her to the elevator. Go to your meeting, present your pitch. And when Morrison tries to make you feel small, remember that you're wearing a ring worth more than his car, and you're engaged to a man who just became his boss. The elevator doors opened. Elena stepped inside, then turned back. Victor, thank you. Don't thank me yet. We haven't even started the hard part. The doors closed before she could ask what he meant. Morrison & Associates occupied 3 floors of a midtown tower, all glass walls and aggressive ambition. Elena had walked through these doors every morning for 6 years, building her career from junior draftsman to lead architect. She knew every corner, every conference room, every political landmine. Today, everything felt different. Richard Morrison's assistant looked surprised when Elena arrived at 7:55. Ms. Moore, we weren't sure you'd come in today, given... She gestured vaguely, encompassing the weekend's disaster. I have a pitch at 10. Elena kept her voice level. Is Richard ready? He's expecting you. The assistant's eyes dropped to Elena's left hand, widened at the ring. Is that new? Very. Elena didn't elaborate, just headed for Morrison's corner office. Richard Morrison had built his firm through a combination of genuine talent and ruthless networking. He was 63, silver-haired, and believed architecture was a gentleman's profession, which meant he tolerated women as long as they didn't make him uncomfortable. Elena had spent 6 years being very careful not to make him uncomfortable. That was about to change. Morrison looked up when she entered, his expression already set in sympathetic but firm lines, the look of a man about to deliver bad news and expect gratitude for his gentleness. Elena, sit down. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. I'm glad you came in. We need to discuss the Harrison situation. The pitch is at 10, Elena said, remaining standing. I'm ready. The presentation is finalized. The renderings are... Yes, about that. Morrison steepled his fingers, a gesture Elena had seen him use when explaining why someone's project was being reassigned. Given recent events, I think it's best if we make some changes to the team structure. What kind of changes? I'll be taking the lead on the Harrison pitch. You'll remain as supporting architect, of course. Your work is excellent, but under the circumstances, I think clients would prefer to work with someone with a more stable personal situation. There it was, the gentle knife positioned right between her ribs. My personal situation has no bearing on my professional abilities. Come now, Elena. Morrison's tone turned patronizing. You were publicly humiliated 2 nights ago. The story is everywhere. Clients don't want drama. They want stability, consistency. Someone they can trust to see a project through without personal complications derailing everything. The Harrison building is my design, and it will remain your design. I'm simply suggesting that given everything you're going through, the breakup, the media attention, the emotional toll, it might be best if I handle client relations while you focus on the technical work. Translation: you keep doing the actual work while I take the credit and the senior partnership. Elena felt anger rising, hot and sharp. This was exactly what Victor had predicted. Morrison saw blood in the water and was moving to protect himself, his firm, his relationships with powerful families like the Hartleys. She could fight, make a scene, demand her rightful place, or she could play the card Victor had dealt her. Elena lifted her left hand, letting light catch the ring. Morrison's eyes tracked the movement, widened almost imperceptibly. You're right that my personal situation has changed, she said calmly. I got engaged Saturday night. Morrison blinked. I'm sorry? To Victor Romano. Perhaps you've heard of him? Real estate investor, art collector, and as of this morning, your largest shareholder. The color drained from Morrison's face. What are you talking about? Check your email. The acquisition papers should have come through about 10 minutes ago. Elena pulled out her phone, showed him the press release that had gone live at exactly 8 a.m. We're making the announcement public now. I thought you should know before you read it in the Times. Morrison grabbed his own phone, fingers fumbling. Elena watched him scroll through emails, his expression shifting from confusion to shock to something very close to panic. He bought 49% of my firm? Our firm, Elena corrected gently. And yes, Victor is very interested in architecture. We met at one of my building openings last year. It's been quite a whirlwind. She smiled, the expression not quite reaching her eyes. I'm sure you understand why I need to maintain focus on the Harrison pitch. It's important to show Victor that his confidence in this firm is well placed. Morrison looked at her like she'd grown a second head. You're engaged to Victor Romano. Since Saturday night. I know the timing seems sudden, but when you know, you know. Elena kept her voice light, casual, the tone of a woman discussing weekend plans rather than strategic nuclear strikes. Victor's very supportive of my career. In fact, he specifically mentioned how impressed he is with the Harrison building design. He's looking forward to seeing the pitch succeed. The implication hung in the air like smoke. Morrison's political instincts kicked in, and Elena could see him recalculating every equation in his head. Well, he cleared his throat. Congratulations are in order. I had no idea you were seeing anyone. We kept it private. You know how it is. Elena finally sat down, crossing her legs like they were discussing nothing more significant than weather. So about the Harrison pitch. I assume you'll want me to take the lead, given my relationship with the design and Victor's interest in the project's success. Morrison's jaw worked. He was trapped, and he knew it. Pull Elena from the pitch, and he'd be explaining to his largest shareholder why he'd demoted the man's fiancée. Keep her on, and he'd be eating every patronizing word he'd just said. Of course, he managed. I never intended to remove you entirely, simply to provide support during a difficult time. How thoughtful. But I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. Elena stood, smoothing her skirt. I should prepare for the presentation. Will you be attending as planned? Yes, absolutely. Morrison was already reaching for his phone, probably to call his lawyer and verify the acquisition papers. Elena, this engagement, it's legitimate? Why would it be anything else? It's just, the timing is remarkable. 2 days ago you were engaged to Nathan Cole, and now I'm engaged to a man who actually values my work. Elena headed for the door, then paused. You know what's remarkable, Richard? How quickly people show their true colors when they think you're vulnerable. Thank you for that reminder. She left him sitting at his desk, probably still trying to figure out how his Monday morning had gone so spectacularly off the rails. The Harrison building pitch took place in Morrison & Associates' largest conference room, windows overlooking Manhattan's geometric sprawl. The clients were three executives from Harrison Development Group, all men, all wearing expressions of polite skepticism when Elena walked in. They'd seen the news. Of course they'd seen the news. Ms. Moore, the lead executive, James Harrison himself, nodded cautiously. We appreciate you taking the time this morning. We understand you've had a challenging weekend. Not challenging, Elena corrected, setting up her presentation materials. Clarifying. Sometimes it takes a public moment to understand what actually matters. She pulled up the first rendering. The Harrison building rose on screen, glass and steel and careful ambition, designed to fit into the financial district while standing distinctly apart. This building is about transformation, Elena began, her voice steady. Taking a historic site and creating something that honors its past while building toward the future. The ground floor maintains the original facade's architectural language. You'll notice the limestone work echoes the 1920s building surrounding it. But as you move up, the materials shift. Glass, modern steel, a building in conversation with itself. She walked them through every detail. The mixed-use space that would bring residential and commercial together. The public plaza designed to create community in a district that emptied after business hours. The environmental systems that would make it one of the greenest buildings in Lower Manhattan. Elena had given this presentation 100 times in preparation. But today, something was different. Maybe it was the ring on her finger, tangible reminder that she didn't need this pitch to survive. Maybe it was the weekend's humiliation, which had burned away any remaining fear of judgment. Or maybe it was simply that she'd stopped trying to make herself smaller to fit other people's expectations. The timeline is aggressive, she concluded, but manageable. 18 months from groundbreaking to occupancy. Morrison & Associates has the resources and expertise to deliver on schedule and budget. Questions? James Harrison leaned forward. Ms. Moore, I have to ask, your personal situation, the engagement announcement this morning, is this going to be a distraction from the project? My engagement to Victor Romano? Elena smiled. If anything, it's an advantage. Victor has extensive experience in real estate development. He's been consulting on the environmental systems design. His work with sustainable building materials in Brooklyn has been groundbreaking. I can provide references if you'd like. It was a complete fabrication. Victor hadn't touched the Harrison building design, but it sounded plausible, and more importantly, it positioned her engagement as a professional asset rather than personal drama. Morrison cleared his throat from his position at the table's end. Mr. Romano has been very impressed with Miss Moore's work, as have we all. The other executives exchanged glances. Elena could see the calculation happening. Powerful businessman's fiancé, shareholder in the architecture firm, rising talent in her own right. The scandal from Saturday night was already being recontextualized. The design is exceptional, one of the other executives said. And your passion for the project is evident. We'll need to discuss internally, but I think we're looking at a very productive partnership. 20 minutes later, Elena walked out of the conference room with a handshake agreement and a promise of contracts by Friday. Morrison followed her into the hallway, his expression complicated. That was impressive, he admitted. The Romano connection genuinely helped. The Romano connection had nothing to do with the design being good. Elena kept her voice level. But I appreciate you recognizing its strategic value. Elena, about this morning, I shouldn't have suggested removing you from the pitch. No, you shouldn't have, but you did. And now we both know where we stand. She gathered her materials. I'll expect the senior partnership announcement by the end of the month, along with appropriate equity in the firm. Morrison's eyes narrowed. That's not how this works. It is now. You have a new shareholder who's very interested in ensuring his fiancée is treated fairly. I suggest you adjust your expectations accordingly. She left him standing in the hallway, probably wondering when the quiet, ambitious architect he'd hired 6 years ago had developed fangs. Elena's phone started ringing before she'd even left the building. Her mother, Amy. 3 reporters whose numbers she didn't recognize. She silenced all of them and texted Victor instead. Pitch went well. Morrison knows about the acquisition. I may have negotiated myself a senior partnership. His response came immediately. May have, will have, by end of month. That's my girl. Car is waiting outside. We have appearances to make. Elena found the town car idling at the curb, Victor in the back seat reviewing something on his tablet. He looked up when she slid in beside him, his dark eyes assessing. "You're smiling," he observed. "Am I?" Elena touched her face, surprised to find it was true. "I suppose I am. Morrison looked like he'd swallowed glass when I told him I expected senior partnership." "Good. Men like him respond to power. You just showed him you have it." Victor set aside his tablet. "How do you feel about photographers?" "Generally opposed." "Why?" "Because we're having lunch at the Polo Bar in 20 minutes, and I've made sure certain media outlets know we'll be there." He pulled out his phone, showed her a carefully curated social media feed. "The engagement announcement is trending. We need to be seen together, looking happy and very much in love." Elena's stomach nodded. "I'm not sure I can pull off in love convincingly." "You don't have to be in love. You just have to look like a woman who's chosen something better than Nathan Cole." Victor's expression softened slightly. "Which shouldn't be difficult, since you have." The Polo Bar was exactly what Elena expected. Dark wood, leather banquets, the kind of old money establishment where deals were made over martinis and everyone pretended not to notice celebrities. A photographer was already positioned outside, camera ready. "Smile," Victor murmured as they exited the car. "And for the love of everything, look at me like I'm not a business arrangement." Elena took his offered arm, surprised by how solid it felt. Victor moved with the casual confidence of someone who knew he belonged anywhere he chose to be. The photographer's camera clicked frantically as they walked toward the entrance. "Mr. Romano, Ms. Moore, congratulations on the engagement." "When did you know she was the one?" "Elena, how does it feel to move on so quickly?" Victor's hand tightened fractionally on her arm, the only sign he'd heard the last question. "Ms. Moore and I have known each other for over a year. The timing of our announcement has nothing to do with anyone else's schedule." Inside, the maitre d' greeted Victor by name and led them to a corner booth with perfect sightlines to the door. Strategic positioning. They'd be visible to everyone who entered, but far enough back to suggest intimacy rather than performance. "You've done this before," Elena said as they settled into the booth. "Managed public perception, constantly. It's exhausting and necessary." Victor ordered wine without consulting the menu, then turned his full attention to her. "Tell me about the pitch." "The real version, not the summary." So Elena did. She described Harrison's skepticism, Morrison's political calculations, the moment she'd leveraged Victor's name and watched the entire dynamic shift. Victor listened with focused intensity, asking questions that revealed he actually understood architecture beyond investment potential. "You transformed a liability into leverage," he said when she'd finished. "That's not just smart, that's strategic thinking most people never develop." "I had a good teacher," Elena gestured at him with her wine glass. "You bought a company to protect me. That's fairly advanced strategy." "That's self-interest. Morrison and Associates has been undervalued for years. I've been looking at acquisition opportunities in architecture and design. Your situation simply accelerated the timeline." Victor's smile was slight. "Though I won't pretend helping you wasn't satisfying." "Why?" Elena leaned forward. "You don't know me. This could blow up spectacularly. Why risk your reputation on a stranger?" "Because I recognize talent when I see it, and because—" Victor paused, choosing words carefully. "My family built their fortune through methods that weren't always legal. I've spent 20 years legitimizing that money, turning it into something cleaner. But certain doors stay closed to men with my background. Your credentials, your education, your professional reputation, those are things money can't buy. So I'm your ticket to respectability. And I'm your nuclear option against people who tried to destroy you." Victor met her eyes steadily. "We're using each other, Elena. The only difference is we're honest about it." A waiter appeared with appetizers Elena didn't remember ordering. The service was impeccable, invisible, the kind of attention that came from Victor being a regular customer. "The Hartley engagement announcement is in 2 hours," Victor said, checking his watch. "Nathan and Vanessa will hold court at the Yale Club, all their society friends gathering to celebrate. The coverage will be extensive." And you've planned a counter-move. We're attending the Warren Gallery opening tonight. Black tie, major donors, excellent photo opportunities. I've made a significant acquisition, a Rothko that's been in private hands for 40 years. The art world will be paying attention. Victor pulled up an invitation on his phone. We'll arrive at 8, stay 90 minutes, make sure we're photographed extensively. By the time the evening news runs, you'll be the story, not them. Elena looked at the invitation, the carefully orchestrated evening, the precision of Victor's planning. This is your life, isn't it? Every moment calculated, every appearance strategic. Yes. Doesn't it get exhausting? Constantly. Victor's expression was unreadable. But it's necessary. Men like me don't get to be careless. Every mistake gets magnified. Every misstep becomes evidence of character. So I don't make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. Then I make them privately, where no one sees. He gestured around the restaurant at the carefully maintained facade. This is the performance. Real life happens in the spaces between. Before Elena could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from Amy. What the actual hell? You're engaged to Victor Romano? Call me immediately. Then her mother, Elena Marie Moore, I am getting on a train right now. We need to talk about this. Then a number she didn't recognize. Saw the announcement. Congratulations on the upgrade. Nathan Cole is already trying to spin the narrative. Watch your back. They're coming out of the woodwork, Elena muttered, silencing her phone. Let them. Victor signaled for the check. By tomorrow, this will be old news. By next week, it'll be a footnote. The trick is staying consistent with the narrative until the public loses interest. And what is the narrative exactly? Successful businessman and brilliant architect find each other at the perfect moment. Whirlwind romance built on mutual respect and shared interests. You're not rebounding, you're leveling up. I'm not buying legitimacy, I'm recognizing talent. Very romantic, very strategic, very believable. The check arrived and disappeared with supernatural speed. Victor stood, offered his hand to help Elena from the booth. The gesture was old-fashioned, courtly, and completely calculated for the room full of people watching them. Outside, the photographer had been joined by 2 others. Victor pulled Elena close as they walked to the car, his hand warm on the small of her back. For the cameras, it looked intimate. In reality, it was choreography. You're very good at this, Elena said once they were safely in the car. I've had practice. Victor loosened his tie fractionally, the first unguarded gesture she'd seen from him. The Warren opening is at 8. I'll have a dress sent to your apartment. Nothing too dramatic, but significant enough to make a statement. Jewelry as well. I can dress myself. Of course you can. But tonight you're not dressing yourself. You're dressing the role of Victor Romano's fiancé, which requires a specific aesthetic. He pulled up photos on his tablet, elegant gowns in deep jewel tones, diamond necklaces that probably had armed guards. Choose whichever you prefer. They'll all fit perfectly. Elena scrolled through the options that cost more than most people's cars. How do you know they'll fit? I employed the same research methods I used for the ring. You wore a custom gown to the Architecture Awards last fall. The designer keeps detailed measurements. Victor's expression suggested this level of preparation was completely normal. I don't leave details to chance. You've mentioned that. Elena selected a midnight blue gown that looked like liquid sapphire. This one. Excellent choice. It photographs beautifully. Victor made a note on his phone. The car will pick you up at 7:30. We'll arrive together, make an entrance, circulate strategically, and leave before the energy dips. Simple. Nothing about this was simple, but Elena was beginning to understand Victor's definition of the word meant carefully orchestrated to appear effortless. The car dropped her at her apartment building, and Elena climbed the stairs feeling like she'd lived 3 days in the span of 12 hours. Inside, she found her mother sitting on the hallway floor outside her door, suitcase beside her. Mom. Catherine Moore stood, all 5 feet 2 inches of maternal disapproval, wrapped in a practical coat and sensible shoes. Don't you mom me. I have been calling you all morning. Imagine my surprise when I learned my daughter is engaged from the New York Times. It happened very quickly. Elena unlocked her door, resigned to the conversation she'd been avoiding. Come in. Her apartment looked the same as it had that morning, but everything felt different. Catherine walked through the space with the sharp eye of someone who'd raised 3 daughters and knew when something was wrong. Where are Nathan's things? Gone. He had them removed Saturday night. The night he ended your engagement at Le Bernardin. Catherine's voice was flat. I saw the photos, Elena. Everyone saw the photos. Then you understand why I needed to move on quickly. I understand you're hurting. Catherine sat on the couch, patted the cushion beside her. What I don't understand is this engagement to a man I've never heard you mention, Victor Romano. Elena, his family has a complicated history. I know. Elena sat, the weight of the day finally catching up with her. Mom, Nathan tried to destroy me. His family is using their influence to damage my career. Victor is offering protection. Protection? Catherine's expression sharpened. This is a business arrangement. It's mutually beneficial. That's not the same as love, sweetheart. No, it's better. It's honest. Elena met her mother's eyes. Nathan told me he loved me while planning to humiliate me publicly. Victor is telling me exactly what this is and what he expects. Which would you prefer? Catherine was quiet for a long moment. Show me the contract. You know about the contract? Elena, I didn't raise you to be naive. A man like Victor Romano doesn't propose after 2 days without paperwork. Catherine held out her hand. I want to see what you signed. Elena retrieved the contract from her bedroom, handed it to her mother. Catherine read with the focused attention of someone who'd spent 30 years teaching contract law at Columbia. Her eyebrows rose at several points, but she didn't interrupt her review. 6 months, she finally said. Substantial settlement, separate residences, NDA with teeth. She looked up. He's protecting you. He's protecting both of us. No, Elena. These terms are weighted heavily in your favor. The settlement alone would give you complete financial independence. The career clauses ensure you maintain professional autonomy. Even the appearance schedule has limits to prevent exploitation. Catherine set the contract aside. Victor Romano is protecting you, and the cost to himself is minimal beyond money he apparently has in abundance. Elena blinked. I thought you'd be furious. I'm furious you felt you needed to do this alone. I'm furious Nathan Cole turned out to be exactly the kind of man I worried he was. I'm furious the Hartley family is using their influence to hurt my daughter. Catherine took Elena's hand. But I'm not furious about Victor Romano. Suspicious, yes. Concerned about the emotional implications, absolutely. But furious? No. I don't love him, Mom. I know, but do you trust him? Elena thought about Victor's precision, his honesty about what this arrangement was, the way he'd moved pieces on the board to protect her before she'd even known she needed protecting. Yes, she said. I think I do. Then that's a start. Catherine stood, brushing invisible lint from her skirt. Now, what time is this gallery opening, and what do you need me to do to help you prepare? By 7:30, Elena barely recognized herself in the mirror. The midnight blue gown fit like it had been made for her body specifically, which it probably had. The diamond necklace Victor had sent, borrowed from a friend, the note said, though Elena suspected the friend was a very expensive jeweler, caught light with every breath. Her hair had been styled by a professional Catherine had somehow summoned, makeup applied with precision. She looked like someone who belonged in Victor Romano's world. The town car arrived exactly on time. Victor waited in the back, devastating in a tuxedo that probably cost more than Elena's first car. His eyes widened fractionally when she slid in beside him. You look... He paused, seeming to search for words. Formidable. Is that a compliment? From me? Absolutely. Victor adjusted his cufflinks, a gesture Elena was beginning to recognize as habit when he was calculating something. Ready to make an entrance? As ready as I'll ever be. The Warren Gallery occupied a converted warehouse in Chelsea, all exposed brick and industrial chic. Cars lined the block, valets moving with practiced efficiency. Camera flashes sparked like fireflies as couples emerged and walked the red carpet, actual red carpet, because apparently gallery openings had those now. Victor exited first, then turned to offer Elena his hand. The moment she emerged from the car, cameras erupted. Flash after flash, voices calling their names, questions shouted over the general chaos. Mr. Romano, is it true you acquired the Rothko? Elena, how does it feel to be engaged to one of New York's most eligible bachelors? When's the wedding? Victor's hand found the small of Elena's back, steady and grounding. We haven't set a date yet. We're enjoying the engagement. He smiled at Elena, and for a moment she almost believed the warmth in his expression was real. Though I'm open to suggestions if she wants to elope tomorrow. The photographers loved it. Elena managed a laugh that sounded almost genuine, leaning into Victor's side in a way that probably looked natural, but felt completely foreign. Inside, the gallery was packed with Manhattan's art world elite. Elena recognized collectors, museum curators, society fixtures who treated cultural events like competitive sports. Everyone turned to watch as Victor guided her through the crowd, his hand never leaving her back. "Smile," he murmured. "Look like you're having the time of your life." "I'm terrified." "Good. Channel it into confidence. These people respect fear disguised as power." He snagged 2 glasses of champagne from a passing waiter, handed her one. "To strategic partnerships." Elena clinked her glass against his. "To burning it all down." Victor's laugh was brief but genuine. "I knew I liked you." They circulated through the gallery, Victor introducing Elena to an endless parade of influential people. She met museum directors and art critics, real estate moguls and tech billionaires, each interaction carefully choreographed to reinforce the narrative. Brilliant architect, successful businessman, perfect partnership. "Your work on the Chelsea Hotel was exceptional," a woman named Margaret something or other said, her diamonds catching light. "I've been following your career with interest. The Harrison Building project sounds ambitious." "It is," Elena agreed. "Though ambition is necessary in architecture, buildings should make statements." Victor certainly made a statement with the Rothko acquisition. Margaret gestured toward the gallery's main wall, where a massive canvas dominated the space, deep reds and blacks that seemed to pulse with internal light. 40 million for a single painting. Some would call it excessive. Some would call it investment, Victor countered smoothly. Art appreciates. Buildings appreciate. Both require vision and willingness to commit resources toward something larger than immediate returns. He was good at this, Elena realized. The careful deflection, the way he turned potential criticism into philosophical discussion, the ease with which he navigated rooms full of people looking for weakness. They moved toward the Rothko, and Elena found herself genuinely arrested by it. The painting was massive, overwhelming, the kind of work that demanded attention rather than asking for it. "Do you like it?" Victor asked quietly. "It's aggressive, unapologetic." Elena tilted her head, studying the color relationships. "It doesn't care if you like it. It just exists, taking up space, refusing to be ignored." "Exactly why I bought it." Victor's expression was unreadable in the gallery's dramatic lighting. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to apologize for existing. Before Elena could respond, a familiar voice cut through the ambient noise. "Elena Moore, what a surprise." She turned to find Nathan's mother standing 3 feet away, diamonds at her throat, venom in her smile. Constance Cole had never liked Elena, too ambitious, too focused on career, not quite the right family background, but she'd tolerated her while Elena served the purpose of making Nathan look serious and settled. Apparently tolerance had expired. "Constance," Elena kept her voice level. "How unexpected to see you here." "I could say the same, though I suppose Victor Romano can afford to bring anyone to these events." Constance's eyes raked over Elena's dress, the borrowed diamonds, landing finally on the engagement ring. "That's quite a rock. Moving up in the world, are we?" Victor's hand tightened fractionally on Elena's waist. "Mrs. Cole, lovely to see you. I hope Nathan and Vanessa are enjoying their engagement celebration." "They are, thank you, though some of us question the timing of your announcement. Seems rather convenient." Constance's smile was sharp enough to draw blood. "Nathan mentioned Elena had difficulty accepting the breakup. I hope this isn't some desperate attempt to save face." The gallery had gone quiet around them. Elena felt eyes turning, people sensing drama and moving closer to witness it. "Desperate would be clinging to a relationship with a man who publicly humiliated me," Elena said, her voice carrying. Moving forward with someone who actually respects my work seems like basic self-preservation. Respect. Constance laughed, the sound brittle. Is that what we're calling it? Because from where I stand, it looks like you've simply traded one checkbook for a larger one. Funny. Victor's voice went cold in a way that made several nearby people visibly flinch. I was thinking the same about your son's engagement, trading a woman with actual accomplishments for one whose primary qualification is her father's Senate seat. Very strategic, very calculated, very much what you'd expect from people who value connections over character. Constance's face flushed. How dare you say— No, Mrs. Cole. How dare you? Victor stepped forward slightly, not threateningly, but with enough presence to command the space. You came here to embarrass Elena, to make her feel small and desperate in front of Manhattan's art world. But here's what you failed to consider. She doesn't need your approval anymore. She doesn't need your son's name or your family's connections. She has her own career, her own reputation, and— He glanced at Elena, something fierce in his expression. Her own ability to recognize when she's better off without people who never appreciated her. The silence was absolute. Even the ambient music seemed to have stopped. Constance opened her mouth, closed it, then turned on her heel and stalked toward the exit. Several of her society friends followed, whispering furiously. Victor watched them go, then turned to the remaining crowd with an easy smile. Well, that was awkward. Margaret, you were saying something about the museum's new wing? Just like that, the tension broke. Conversations resumed. Margaret laughed and launched into a story about fundraising challenges. The room moved on because Victor Romano had decided the moment was over. Elena realized she was shaking slightly. Victor's hand moved from her waist to her elbow, steadying. Bathroom, she managed. I need a minute. Second door on the left. Take your time. I'll be right here. The bathroom was mercifully empty, all marble and dramatic lighting. Elena gripped the sink, breathing carefully, trying to process what had just happened. Victor had defended her. More than defended. He'd eviscerated Constance Cole in front of people whose opinions actually mattered in the social circles the Coles valued. He'd made Elena's case without her needing to say a word. The door opened. Elena looked up expecting Victor and found instead a woman she recognized from architecture journals. Patricia Chen, senior partner at one of New York's most prestigious firms. That was quite a show, Patricia said, moving to the sink beside Elena's. Victor Romano going to war for his fiancée. Very romantic. It was just— he was defending me. He was making a statement. Patricia pulled out lipstick, applied it with precision. Victor doesn't do anything without calculation. That performance was designed to establish you as someone under his protection. Constance Cole just learned what everyone in the real estate world already knows. You don't cross Victor Romano unless you're prepared for consequences. Elena met Patricia's eyes in the mirror. What kind of consequences? The kind that make life difficult in ways you don't see coming. Patricia capped her lipstick. The Coles have been trying to get planning permission for a development in Tribeca for 3 years. Want to bet they get denied again next week? Nathan's father sits on 2 corporate boards. Want to bet those positions become untenable? That's strategic, ruthless, exactly what you need after what Nathan did to you. Patricia turned to face Elena directly. I've been in this business 30 years. I've watched talented women get destroyed by men who felt threatened by them. You got lucky. You found someone willing to fight back. It's not real, the engagement. It's a business arrangement. Sweetheart, in New York, all marriages are business arrangements. Some people are just more honest about it. Patricia headed for the door, paused. My firm is looking for a senior partner. If you ever get tired of Morrison's political games, call me. Victor Romano's wife, even temporarily, carries weight in this industry. She left Elena alone with her reflection and the growing realization that she'd set something in motion she didn't fully understand. When Elena returned to the gallery, Victor was deep in conversation with the museum director, discussing plans for a new wing. He looked up when she approached, his expression shifting to something that might have been concern. Better? Patricia Chen offered me a job. Did she? Victor's smile was slight. Told you the ring carried weight. She also suggested you're planning to retaliate against the Coles. I'm planning to reveal character, Victor corrected. There's a difference, but we can discuss it in the car. I think we've made enough of an appearance." They made their exit 30 minutes later, waving off photographers who'd been waiting for the perfect shot. The town car pulled away from the curb and Elena felt the performance mask slip. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for what you said to Constance. I meant every word." Victor loosened his tie, the gesture somehow making him look more dangerous rather than less formal. "She came there to humiliate you. I made sure she left humiliated instead. That's how this works. Patricia said you'd make life difficult for the Coles. Patricia talks too much." Victor pulled out his phone, scrolled through something. "But she's not wrong. Nathan's family is trying to destroy your career. I'm simply ensuring they face appropriate consequences." "What kind of consequences?" "The kind where planning committees suddenly discover code violations, where board positions become uncomfortable, where social invitations mysteriously dry up." Victor glanced at her. "I told you I was good at revealing character. The Coles have been getting away with cruelty for years because they have money and connections. Time someone reminded them that neither makes you untouchable." Elena should have been horrified. The casual discussion of revenge, the wielding of power like a weapon, the complete absence of moral ambiguity in Victor's voice. Instead, she felt something dangerously close to satisfaction. "You're enjoying this," she said. "I'm enjoying watching bullies face consequences. There's a difference." Victor pocketed his phone. "You performed beautifully tonight. Even my associates were convinced we're genuinely in love." "We're not very good actors if your criminal associates can tell." "My business partners," Victor corrected with a slight smile. "And they're excellent at reading people. If they believe it, everyone else will." The car pulled up to Elena's building. Victor walked her to the door, a gesture of courtesy that also happened to be visible to any lingering photographers. "Tomorrow morning, there's a photo shoot for Town and Country," he said. "They want engagement photos. The stylist will be at your apartment at 8. More performance. More storytelling." Victor's expression softened fractionally. "You did well tonight, Elena. Better than well. You looked like you belonged. I felt like an imposter." "Everyone feels like an imposter in rooms like that. The trick is not letting them see it." He stepped back, hands in his pockets. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow we convince New York we're the love story of the season." Elena watched him return to the car, his silhouette perfectly composed even in casual gesture. The town car pulled away, leaving her alone with the weight of the evening and the borrowed diamonds that felt heavier with each passing moment. Inside her apartment, she found her mother had left food in the refrigerator and a note on the counter. "I'm staying at Margaret's tonight. Call me if you need me." Also, Victor Romano is either going to save your life or completely destroy it. "I haven't decided which." "Love you, Mom." Elena changed out of the gown carefully, hanging it like evidence. The diamonds went back in their case. The ring stayed on. She'd gotten used to its weight. Her phone showed 73 new notifications, photos from the gallery opening, articles about the Rothko acquisition, speculation about her relationship with Victor. The narrative was taking shape exactly as he'd predicted. Brilliant architect and powerful businessman, whirlwind romance, Manhattan fairy tale. None of the coverage mentioned Nathan Cole. Elena fell asleep with her phone in her hand, Victor's words echoing in her mind. "Everyone feels like an imposter. The trick is not letting them see it." She was beginning to understand that truth was irrelevant compared to performance. And somewhere in Manhattan, Nathan Cole was learning that humiliating Elena Moore had consequences he'd never anticipated. The photo shoot started at 9, not 8, because the stylist got stuck in traffic, and Victor's assistant had to reschedule the entire morning. Elena stood in her living room watching 3 people transform her apartment into a stage set, moving furniture, adjusting lighting, hanging fabric to diffuse the harsh morning sun coming through her windows. "We want intimate," the photographer explained, a woman named Simone who wore all black and spoke in definitive statements. "Like we're catching private moments. Not posed. Natural. Love in its purest form." Elena resisted the urge to laugh. There was nothing pure about what she and Victor were doing, but Simone didn't need to know that. Victor arrived at 9:15 wearing jeans and a white shirt rolled to his elbows, looking more relaxed than Elena had ever seen him. He carried coffee from a place that wasn't Starbucks, handed her a cup without asking if she wanted it. "You look tense," he observed. "I'm being photographed for a wedding announcement about a fake engagement. Tense seems appropriate." "Town and country engagement feature," Victor corrected. "And it's not fake, it's strategic. There's a difference." He took a sip of his coffee, watching the crew set up. "Simone, are we starting with the window shots or the couch?" "Window," Simone decided. "The light is perfect right now. We'll lose it in an hour." For the next 3 hours, Elena was positioned and repositioned, told to laugh at things that weren't funny, to look at Victor like he was the center of her universe, to touch him in ways that suggested comfort and intimacy. Victor played his part perfectly, his hand on her waist feeling almost natural, his smile when he looked at her nearly convincing. "Tell me something true," he said during a break while Simone reviewed shots on her camera. Elena blinked. "What?" "Something true about yourself. Something not in your public biography or your architectural portfolio. Something real." Victor leaned against the window frame, backlit by morning sun. "We've been engaged 4 days, and I barely know you beyond statistics. You know enough to fake a relationship convincingly. I know your professional accomplishments and your taste in coffee. I don't know what you're actually like when you're not performing." His expression was genuinely curious. "So, tell me something true." Elena considered lying, giving him something safe and meaningless. But Victor had been brutally honest about every aspect of their arrangement. Maybe he deserved honesty in return. "I'm terrified I'm not good enough," she said quietly. "Every building I design, every pitch I give, every project I complete, there's this voice saying it's luck, not talent, that eventually someone will realize I'm just pretending to know what I'm doing." Victor was quiet for a moment. "Imposter syndrome. Is that the clinical term for feeling like a fraud?" "It's the term for being human in a competitive field." He shifted slightly, and for the first time, Elena saw something unguarded in his expression. "I spent the first 10 years of my career convinced someone would expose me as the son of a mobster playing at legitimacy. Every business deal, every acquisition, every interaction with old money Manhattan, I waited for them to laugh and tell me I'd never actually belong." "Do you still feel that way?" "Every day." Victor's smile was slight and sad. "The difference is, I've learned to use it. Fear of exposure makes you careful. Careful people don't make stupid mistakes." "Is that why you planned this so precisely? The contract, the timing, the strategic appearances?" "That's why I plan everything precisely. Control is the only defense against chaos." He paused as Simone called them back for more shots. "Your turn. Ask me something." "Why haven't you been married before?" Elena moved back into position, Victor's arms sliding around her waist like they'd been doing this for years. "You're 42, successful, conventionally attractive. Why wait until now to need a wife?" "Because marriage is complicated and I prefer simple transactions." Victor's hand was warm through the thin fabric of her dress. "And because the women who'd marry me for love want something I can't give them, and the women who'd marry me for money are exactly the type I don't want." "What type is that?" "The kind who'd sell me out the moment someone offered a better deal." His expression hardened slightly. "I've seen what happens when loyalty has a price tag. It ends badly for everyone involved." Simone directed them through another series of shots, laughing together on the couch, Victor's hand in Elena's hair, Elena's head on his shoulder, careful choreography designed to suggest spontaneous affection. By noon, Elena's face hurt from smiling and her nerves felt raw from constant performance. "That's a wrap," Simone finally announced. "These are going to be gorgeous. Town and country will love them." After the crew packed up and left, Elena collapsed on her couch, still wearing the designer dress they'd put her in for the shoot. Victor stood at her window, looking out at the street below, his coffee long since gone cold. "Thank you for this morning," Elena said. "I know it was tedious." "It was necessary." Victor turned from the window. "The photos will run next month. By then, we'll need to be seen at charity events, dinner parties, all the social obligations that come with being a visible couple. Are you prepared for that?" "I don't have much choice, do I?" "You always have a choice. The contract has an exit clause." Victor's expression was serious. "If this is too much, the performance, the public scrutiny, the constant calculation, you can walk away. There would be financial penalties, but you'd survive them. Elena thought about Nathan's public humiliation, Morrison's willingness to sacrifice her career, the Hartley family's power being wielded to destroy her reputation. She thought about Constance Cole's venomous smile at the gallery opening and Patricia Chen's offer of a senior partnership. "I'm not walking away," she said. "I made a deal. I intend to keep it." "Even if it costs you something personally?" "What does that mean?" Victor moved to sit in the chair across from her, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. "This arrangement works because it's honest. But the longer we perform it, the more people will expect it to be real. Your friends, your family, eventually even yourself. There's a cost to pretending something that isn't true." "You sound like you're speaking from experience." "I am." Victor's expression was unreadable. "I spent 20 years pretending to be something I wasn't. Legitimate businessman, respectable citizen, man with clean hands and clear conscience. The performance was so convincing that sometimes I forgot it was performance. When you lie long enough, the truth becomes negotiable." "Is that a warning?" "It's a reminder that we both need to stay clear on what this is." Victor stood, straightening his shirt. "I have a meeting at 3. Dinner tonight at Daniel. There's a tech CEO I need to impress, and having you there sends the right message about stability and settling down. Can you be ready by 7? Another performance. Another strategic appearance. But yes." He paused at the door. "Elena, what you said earlier about feeling like a fraud, you're not. Your work is exceptional. The Harrison Building design is genuinely brilliant. Don't let Nathan Cole's cruelty make you question your own talent." He left before she could respond, the door clicking shut with quiet finality. Elena sat in the apartment that had been transformed into a stage set and back again, wearing a dress that cost more than her monthly rent, engaged to a man she barely knew for reasons that had nothing to do with love. And somehow, despite everything, Victor Romano's words about her talent meant more than 2 years of Nathan's empty compliments ever had. The week that followed established a rhythm that felt both exhausting and strangely natural. Elena spent her days at Morrison & Associates working on the Harrison Building details, managing a team that now treated her with new deference thanks to her engagement and Victor's shareholder status. She spent her evenings at carefully orchestrated social events, Victor's hand on her back, performing affection for audiences who couldn't tell the difference between strategy and romance. Friday afternoon, Elena was reviewing structural calculations when her phone rang with an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her answer. "Elena Moore." "Miss Moore, this is Detective Sarah Martinez with the NYPD. I'm hoping you can answer a few questions about Victor Romano." Elena's blood went cold. "What kind of questions?" "Routine inquiry. We're investigating some financial irregularities involving several real estate transactions. Your name came up in our research. Can you come to the precinct, or would you prefer we visit your office?" Neither option sounded appealing, but having NYPD detectives show up at Morrison & Associates would destroy the carefully constructed narrative of respectability. "I can come to you. When?" "This afternoon, if possible. We're at the 17th Precinct on East 51st. Elena ended the call and immediately texted Victor. "NYPD wants to talk to me about you. Financial irregularities. What do I need to know?" His response came within seconds. "Don't go alone. Marcus Webb is already on his way to your office. Say nothing without him present." Marcus Webb arrived 20 minutes later, all understated power in an expensive suit. He'd been the lawyer who'd reviewed Elena's contract, but she'd barely spoken to him beyond signing documents. "Ms. Moore." He settled into the chair across from her desk like he owned it. Victor called. "You're being interviewed about financial transactions you have no knowledge of. This is a fishing expedition." "Fishing for what?" "Evidence against Victor. The NYPD has been trying to connect him to money laundering for years. They have nothing solid, so they're hoping someone close to him will slip up." Marcus pulled out a leather portfolio, made notes with a fountain pen that probably cost more than Elena's laptop. "Here's what you need to understand. You don't know anything about Victor's business dealings. You're an architect. You met him at a gallery opening. You're not involved in his companies or financial decisions." "That's all true." "Then this interview should be straightforward. Answer questions honestly, but don't volunteer information. If they ask about transactions, properties, or business associates, you say you don't know. If they try to pressure you, I shut it down. Marcus looked up, his expression sharp. They're going to imply Victor is dangerous. They'll suggest you're in over your head. Do not react. Do not defend him. Simply state facts. The 17th precinct was everything Elena expected. Institutional beige, fluorescent lighting, the smell of bad coffee, and bureaucratic exhaustion. Detective Martinez was a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and a smile that didn't reach them. Miss Moore, thank you for coming in. She led them to an interview room, gesturing at chairs that had probably witnessed 1,000 uncomfortable conversations. This shouldn't take long. Marcus sat beside Elena, his presence somehow both reassuring and terrifying. The fact that she needed a lawyer for a routine inquiry suggested nothing about this was routine. You're engaged to Victor Romano, Martinez began, setting a file on the table between them. How long have you known him? About a year. We met at a building opening. And you got engaged when? Last weekend. Martinez's eyebrows rose. Quick courtship. We connected intellectually. Sometimes things happen fast when they're right. Elena kept her voice steady, repeating the narrative she and Victor had established. Mr. Romano has business interests in real estate development. Has he discussed any of his projects with you? In general terms. We talk about architecture and design, but I'm not involved in his business operations. Have you visited any properties he owns or is developing? His penthouse in Manhattan. We had breakfast there Monday morning. Elena saw no reason to lie about something that was probably already documented. Martinez made a note. What about properties in Brooklyn, Queens? Has he taken you to any development sites? No. Our relationship is personal, not professional. Miss Moore, I'm going to be direct with you. Martinez leaned forward, her expression sympathetic in a way that felt calculated. Victor Romano comes from a family with documented ties to organized crime. His businesses have been investigated multiple times for money laundering, though nothing's been proven. You seem like a smart, accomplished woman. Are you sure you understand what you're getting involved with? Marcus started to intervene, but Elena put a hand on his arm. Detective, I appreciate your concern, but I'm 32 years old and capable of making my own decisions. Victor Romano is a successful businessman. His family history isn't his personal crime record. And my relationship with him is based on mutual respect and shared interests, not his financial portfolio. Even if that portfolio includes illegally obtained money? If you have evidence of illegal activity, charge him. If you don't, stop trying to use me to build a case. Elena kept her voice level, professional. I'm an architect, not an investigator. I don't know anything about Victor's business transactions beyond what any casual observer would know. If that's all you wanted to ask, I think we're done here. Martinez studied her for a long moment, then slid a business card across the table. If you see anything concerning unusual cash transactions, meetings with questionable individuals, anything that makes you uncomfortable, call me. Sometimes people get in too deep before they realize they're drowning. I'll keep that in mind. Elena took the card, had no intention of using it. Outside the precinct, Marcus hailed a cab with the casual efficiency of someone who did this regularly. You handled that well. Martinez was trying to make you doubt Victor, separate you emotionally so you'd be more likely to cooperate. Will they keep investigating? They never stop investigating. Victor's family history makes him a permanent person of interest. But they have nothing concrete, and your engagement actually helps his legitimate business profile. Marcus gave her a sharp look. You defended him in there. That wasn't necessary. It was honest. They were implying he's a criminal based on his family's past. That's not evidence. No, but it's not wrong either. Marcus opened the cab door, gestured for her to enter. Victor Romano operates in gray areas between legal and illegal. He's never been charged because he's careful, not because he's innocent. You should understand that before you get more involved. I understand exactly what this arrangement is. Elena slid into the cab, exhausted by the day's complications. I'm not some naive woman who thinks she's going to reform a bad man. This is business. He is protecting my career. I'm legitimizing his reputation. We're both using each other with clear eyes. Are you? Marcus's expression was impossible to read. Because from where I sit, you just defended him to a detective who is offering you an out. That suggests emotional investment beyond business arrangement. The cab pulled away before Elena could formulate a response. She watched Marcus disappear into the midtown crowd, his words echoing uncomfortably. She'd defended Victor, not because the contract required it, but because Martinez's implications had felt unfair. Victor had been honest with her from the beginning about his background, his motivations, the gray areas he operated in. He'd never pretended to be something he wasn't, which was more than Elena could say for Nathan Cole, who'd worn respectability like camouflage while destroying women who threatened his ego. Her phone buzzed with a text from Victor. Marcus said you handled the NYPD well. Thank you for not giving them anything useful. Elena typed back, I didn't know anything useful to give them, but Martinez seemed very interested in proving you're a criminal. She's been trying to prove that for 5 years. So far, she's failed. A pause. Then, did she scare you? Elena considered the question. Martinez had tried to scare her, painting Victor as dangerous and Elena as a victim in waiting. But the truth was more complicated than the detective's narrative allowed. No, she finally responded. She made me defensive, which is different. Defensive of what? The principle that people shouldn't be judged solely by their family's history. Victor's response took longer this time. That's unexpectedly kind of you. Most people assume the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Most people are lazy thinkers. Elena watched Manhattan slide past the cab window, all those buildings designed by architects who'd taken risks and made compromises. Besides, you've been honest about your background. That counts for something. Does it? More than you'd think. That evening's event was a charity gala at the Met, black tie and Manhattan's wealthiest pretending altruism while networking aggressively. Elena wore another borrowed gown, emerald this time, because Victor's stylist had a theory about colors that photographed well, and jewelry that required security escorts. Victor met her at the museum steps, devastating in a tuxedo, his eyes tracking over her appearance with what might have been appreciation. You look like you're ready to declare war on the establishment. Is that a compliment? From me, always. He offered his arm. Ready to convince New York's elite we're madly in love? As ready as I'll ever be. The gala was everything Elena expected. Champagne, hors d'oeuvres that were more art than food, conversations that danced around actual meaning while establishing social hierarchies. She and Victor moved through the crowd like dancers who'd rehearsed choreography, his hand always on her back, her smile perfectly calibrated. They were photographed extensively. Victor introduced her to board members and major donors, each interaction reinforcing the narrative. Successful couple, shared values, commitment to the arts. Elena played her part, discussing architecture and urban design with genuine knowledge, laughing at appropriate moments, touching Victor's arm with practiced affection. Halfway through the evening, while Victor was deep in conversation with a museum director, Elena excused herself to find the restroom. She was walking through the Egyptian wing, heels clicking on marble, when she heard a familiar voice. Elena, I was hoping to run into you. She turned to find Nathan standing near a sarcophagus, alone for once, without Vanessa or his mother or the entourage of society friends. He looked tired, older than he had a week ago, his tuxedo immaculate, but his expression strained. Nathan, Elena kept her voice neutral. Shouldn't you be with your fiancé? She's networking with her father's associates. I saw you come this way and thought... He paused, seeming to search for words. I wanted to apologize. Elena laughed, the sound sharp enough to echo off ancient stone. You wanted to apologize. How decent of you. What I did at Le Bernardin was cruel. I should have ended things privately, not... He gestured vaguely. Not like that. You mean you shouldn't have publicly humiliated me to make your new relationship with a senator's daughter seem more dramatic? Elena crossed her arms. Or you shouldn't have had your family try to destroy my career afterward. Nathan's jaw tightened. I didn't know my mother was doing that. When I found out about the pressure on Morrison, I told her to stop. How noble. Did you also tell her to stop spreading rumors about my work ethic? Or suggesting to clients that I'm too emotionally unstable for major projects? Elena stepped closer, keeping her voice low despite wanting to scream. You tried to destroy me, Nathan. You didn't just end our relationship. You tried to erase my professional reputation. I never meant... You meant exactly that, because you couldn't stand the idea of me succeeding without you, couldn't stand that my career was advancing faster than yours. So you found someone whose success came from her father's name and position, someone who wouldn't threaten your ego. Elena felt 2 years of swallowed pride rising in her throat. And when I wouldn't quietly disappear, you tried to force it. That's not fair. Fair? Elena's voice rose before she caught herself, lowered it again. You proposed to Vanessa while we were still engaged. You planned that restaurant ambush to maximize my humiliation. You had your family weaponize their connections against my career. Tell me which part of that was fair, Nathan. He had the decency to look ashamed, at least. I'm sorry, truly, I handled everything wrong. Yes, you did, but you know what? I should thank you. Elena smiled and meant it. Because your cruelty showed me exactly who you are, and it opened doors I didn't know existed. Romano. Nathan's expression darkened. You think he's better than me? Elena, you know who his family is, what they've done. You're trading one set of problems for worse ones. Victor has been more honest with me in a week than you were in 2 years. He's protected my career, defended my reputation, and treated me like an equal partner. So yes, Nathan, he's better than you in every way that matters. He's using you for legitimacy. Everyone knows it. And I'm using him for protection. We're both very clear on what this arrangement is. Elena checked her watch. A Cartier Victor had given her that morning, casual as breathing. Unlike our relationship, which was built on your lies and my willingness to ignore them. I did love you. No, you loved the idea of me. Ambitious enough to be interesting, successful enough to reflect well on you, but never threatening enough to overshadow you. Elena turned to leave. The problem was I kept growing, and you needed me to stay small. Victor appreciates growth, that's the difference. He's going to hurt you, Nathan called after her. Men like him always do. Elena looked back one last time. Men like you already did. I'll take my chances. She found Victor right where she'd left him, still talking with the museum director, but his eyes tracking her return. He excused himself smoothly, moving to intercept her. You saw Nathan, he said quietly. How did you know? Because you look like you want to murder someone, and Nathan Cole just left the Egyptian wing walking like he'd been gutted. Victor's hand found her elbow, steadying. Are you all right? I told him the truth, all of it. How he tried to destroy me, how you've been more honest in a week than he was in 2 years. Elena took a breath, surprised to find she was shaking slightly. He said you're going to hurt me. Probably true. Victor's expression was serious. I hurt most people eventually. It's what I do. That's not reassuring. It's honest. He guided her toward the exit, clearly reading that she'd reached her limit for performance. Come on, we've made enough of an appearance. Let's get out of here. In the town car, Manhattan streaming past tinted windows, Victor poured them both whiskey from a crystal decanter. You defended me again, he said. To Nathan. Why? Elena took the offered glass, let the whiskey burn down her throat. Because he implied you're worse than him due to your family history. But he's the one who publicly destroyed me for sport. You've been nothing but honest about what you are and what you want. I'm a criminal's son playing at legitimacy. You're a businessman who came from complicated circumstances and built something impressive anyway. Elena met his eyes. Nathan Cole came from privilege and used it to hurt people. You came from darkness and built toward light. I know which one I respect more. Victor was quiet for a long moment, his whiskey untouched. You're going to make this complicated, aren't you? What do you mean? This arrangement. It works because it's transactional. Clean, no emotions, no expectations beyond what the contract specifies. He finally drank, the gesture somehow resigned. But you keep seeing me as better than I am. That's dangerous. I see you clearly. Elena felt exhausted suddenly, the day's performances catching up. You're ruthless and calculating. You manipulate situations to your advantage. You use power like a weapon. I know exactly what you are, Victor. And yet you defended me to a detective and your ex-fiancé. Because they were wrong about you. Being ruthless doesn't make you a monster. It makes you someone who understands how the world actually works. Elena leaned her head back against the seat. Besides, You've used your ruthlessness to protect me. That counts for something. It counts for self-interest. Protecting you protects my investment. Keep telling yourself that. Elena closed her eyes. Meanwhile, I'll keep being grateful for the protection, whatever motivates it. The car pulled up to her building. Victor walked her to the door again, maintaining the performance even when no cameras were watching. Tomorrow is City Hall, he said. The actual wedding. Small ceremony, just immediate family and witnesses. Are you ready? To legally marry a man I barely know for strategic purposes? Sure. Why not? Elena smiled despite the absurdity. What could possibly go wrong? Everything. Absolutely everything. Victor's expression was unreadable in the doorway's shadows. But we'll handle it together. That's what partners do. Is that what we are? Partners? According to the contract, yes. According to my growing concern about boundary dissolution, possibly more. He stepped back, hands in his pockets. Get some sleep, Elena. Tomorrow we make this official. Victor? She caught his arm before he could leave. Thank you. For tonight. For handling the NYPD situation, for all of it. I know this is business, but it's also complicated, he finished. I know. That's what worries me. He left her standing in her doorway, engaged to be married in 12 hours to a man who scared her less than the person she'd almost married instead. Elena woke on her wedding day to rain hammering against her windows and her mother sitting at the foot of her bed holding coffee. You're really doing this, Catherine said. It wasn't a question. I'm really doing this. Elena accepted the coffee, grateful for something to do with her hands. Please don't try to talk me out of it. I'm not here to stop you. I'm here to make sure you understand what you're walking into. Catherine's expression was serious in the gray morning light. Marriage, even a strategic one, changes things. Legal entanglements, shared assets, the simple fact of standing in front of witnesses and making vows, it all matters more than you think. The contract specifies 6 months, then clean divorce, no complications. Sweetheart, marriage is always complicated. The question is whether the complications are worth it. Catherine set her own cup aside. Do you trust him? Elena thought about Victor's brutal honesty, his precise protection of her interests, the way he'd defended her to Constance Cole and positioned her for success with Morrison. She thought about Marcus Webb's warning that she was developing emotional investment beyond the contract's terms. Yes, she said, I trust him, maybe more than I should. Then wear the dress I brought. Catherine gestured to the garment bag hanging on Elena's closet door. If you're going to marry a dangerous man in a strategic arrangement, at least look beautiful doing it. The dress was cream silk, simple and elegant, the kind of thing that wouldn't photograph as too bridal for a city hall ceremony but still felt significant. Elena's hands shook slightly as she zipped it up, her reflection in the mirror showing a woman she barely recognized, stronger somehow, sharper, like the past 2 weeks had burned away anything soft. Victor's car arrived at exactly 10:30. He waited in the back seat wearing a dark suit that probably cost more than Elena's entire wardrobe, his expression unreadable when she slid in beside him. You look... He paused, seeming to search for words. Like you're about to do something irreversible. Aren't I? Technically, yes. Practically, the contract has exit clauses. Victor's hand found hers, squeezed once. You can still walk away, Elena. Right now, right here. I'll handle the logistics. Why would you offer that? You need this arrangement as much as I do. Because you're shaking. His thumb brushed across her knuckles, the gesture almost tender. And because I'm not sure anymore whether I'm protecting you or using you. The line keeps getting blurrier. Elena looked at their joined hands, at the engagement ring that had become familiar weight. What if it's both? What if we're protecting each other and using each other simultaneously? Then we're both in trouble. Victor's smile was slight and sad. But we'll be in trouble together, which is something. City Hall was surprisingly crowded for a Thursday morning, couples waiting for their turn at legitimacy, families gathered with cameras and flowers. Victor's presence drew attention immediately. Whispers, sideways glances, people recognizing him from business news or society pages. Marcus Webb waited inside with Sarah Chen and another lawyer Elena didn't recognize. Catherine had brought her sister Margaret as witness. The group was small, efficient, designed to minimize spectacle. All the paperwork is filed, Marcus confirmed, handing Victor a folder. Marriage license, prenuptial agreement filed separately with the court, everything documented. The ceremony takes about 5 minutes. 5 minutes to legally bind herself to a man she'd known for 2 weeks. Elena caught Victor's eye, found him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Not love, certainly, but not pure calculation either. Something in between, complicated and honest in its complication. "Ready?" he asked quietly. "No, but let's do it anyway." The ceremony room was institutional and somehow still beautiful in its simplicity. The officiant was a woman in her 60s who'd probably married thousands of couples, her smile professional and warm. Victor Romano and Elena Moore? They stepped forward together. Victor's hand found Elena's again, and she was grateful for the steadying contact. The officiant began the standard language: lawfully wedded, sickness and health, richer and poorer. Elena heard the words as if from a distance, her entire focus on Victor's dark eyes watching her with unusual intensity. "Do you, Victor Romano, take Elena Moore to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." No hesitation, no performance. Just 2 words that changed everything. "And do you, Elena Moore, take Victor Romano to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Elena thought about Nathan's public betrayal, Morrison's political calculations, the way the past 2 weeks had shown her exactly how brutal Manhattan's power structures could be. She thought about Victor's ruthless protection, his honest acknowledgement of what this arrangement was, the way he'd made space for her to be angry and ambitious without apology. "I do." "Then by the power vested in me by the state of New York, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Victor's hands came up to frame her face, his touch careful despite the moment's significance. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. Elena didn't pull away. She met him halfway, the kiss brief and surprisingly gentle, nothing like the performance kisses they'd practiced for photographs. When they separated, Victor's expression held something Elena had never seen before. Vulnerability, maybe. Or recognition that they'd just crossed a line neither of them could uncross. "Congratulations," the officiant said warmly. "May your marriage be filled with love and happiness." Outside, photographers had gathered despite their efforts at privacy. Someone had tipped them off, probably one of Victor's associates ensuring the right coverage. Cameras flashed as they emerged. Legally married, Victor's hand on Elena's back exactly where it had been for the past 2 weeks. "Mrs. Romano," a photographer called. "How does it feel?" Elena looked at Victor, at this man who was now her husband-in-law, if not in feeling, and found herself smiling genuinely for the first time all day. "It feels like I made the right choice," she said, and meant it. The celebration afterward was small. Lunch at a French restaurant Victor had apparently reserved months ago for business purposes, but repurposed for their wedding party. Catherine and Margaret, Marcus and Sarah, Victor's business associate named Dominic, who looked exactly like what he probably was, and 2 more lawyers whose purposes Elena couldn't quite determine. They toasted with champagne that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Catherine gave a speech about choosing partners who made you stronger rather than smaller. Dominic told a story about Victor that involved questionable legality and impressive strategic thinking. The lawyers discussed prenuptial agreements like they were discussing weather. It was the strangest wedding celebration Elena could imagine, and somehow perfect for what they'd just done. Halfway through dessert, Elena's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Saw the wedding photos. Congratulations on the publicity stunt. Everyone knows it's fake. Nathan." "Of course." She showed Victor, who read the message and smiled slightly. "He's rattled. Good. Should I respond?" "Why bother? He's trying to get a reaction. Don't give him one." Victor pocketed his own phone. "Besides, we have more interesting problems to handle." "What kind of problems?" "The kind where Detective Martinez has been asking questions about a property transaction from 3 years ago, and your name came up in the research despite you having nothing to do with it." Victor's expression went carefully neutral. "She's trying to use our marriage as evidence of criminal association." Elena set down her wine glass. "Can she do that?" "She can try. Won't succeed, but she can try. Victor glanced at Marcus, who nodded slightly. We expected this. Marriage to you makes me look legitimate, which threatens her investigation. She's going to push back hard over the next few weeks. How hard? Subpoenas, more interviews, possibly surveillance. Victor's hand found hers under the table, squeezed. Nothing you can't handle, but it won't be pleasant. You could have warned me before the ceremony. Would it have changed your decision? Elena considered. Martinez's investigation, the possibility of surveillance, the complications of being legally bound to a man the NYPD considered a person of interest, none of it would have stopped her from saying, I do, 3 hours ago. No, she admitted, but I appreciate honesty about what I'm walking into. Then here's more honesty. The Hartley family is planning something. Nathan's father has been making calls, applying pressure in places that shouldn't matter but do. They want you discredited professionally before you can leverage our marriage for career advancement. Victor's expression was grim. I'm handling it, but you should know they're not done trying to destroy you. Let them try. Elena felt something fierce rising in her chest. I'm not the same woman who collapsed outside Le Bernardin 2 weeks ago. They taught me exactly how ruthless I need to be. Victor's smile was sharp and approving. That's my wife talking. The phrase sent something warm through Elena's chest, despite knowing it was strategy. Or maybe because it was strategy. Honest in its calculation, clear in its purpose. After lunch, Victor drove her to his Brooklyn townhouse, the place he actually lived rather than the Manhattan showroom. It was beautiful in an understated way. Brick facade, original details, rooms that felt lived in rather than staged. This is home, he said, watching her reaction. The penthouse is for business. This is where I actually exist. Elena walked through rooms filled with books and art, comfortable furniture that showed wear, a kitchen that looked actually used. It felt more like Victor than anything she'd seen before. Complicated, private, carefully constructed to be both impressive and intimate. The third floor is yours if you want it, Victor said. Separate space, separate bedroom, exactly as the contract specifies. Or you can stay at your apartment, whatever makes you comfortable. What do you want? I want you to feel safe. Everything else is negotiable. He pulled out his phone, checked something. I have a meeting at 4, business that can't be delayed. Will you be all right here alone? I'm not fragile, Victor. I know, but you're also my wife now, which means people who want to hurt me might try to hurt you. Dominic will be outside. He looks like muscle because he is muscle, but he's also surprisingly well-read and makes excellent coffee. You're assigning me a bodyguard? I'm ensuring your safety. There's a difference. Victor moved closer, his expression serious. The NYPD investigation, the Hartley family's campaign, the general scrutiny that comes from being associated with me. It's all real, Elena. I need to know you're protected. Protected from what, exactly? From consequences of my choices that you shouldn't have to face. Victor's hand came up to her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone in a gesture that felt too genuine for performance. This arrangement was supposed to be simple, clean, mutually beneficial without complications. But I'm starting to care whether you're safe, and that's dangerous, Elena finished. You keep saying that. Because it keeps getting more true. Victor stepped back, hands in his pockets, walls going up again. I'll be back by 7. We have that charity dinner tonight. More performance, more photographs, more convincing Manhattan. We're the love story of the season. Victor, wait. Elena caught his arm before he could leave. Thank you. For today. For the honesty. For all of it. I know this is complicated, but it's worth it, he said quietly. Whatever happens, whatever complications arise, protecting you is worth it. He left before Elena could ask if he meant protecting his investment or protecting her personally. Maybe he didn't know the difference anymore. Maybe neither of them did. The charity dinner that night was at the Plaza, black tie and Manhattan's elite pretending generosity while networking aggressively. Elena wore burgundy silk and borrowed diamonds, her wedding ring now joined by a matching band that Victor had produced during the car ride like he'd been planning it all along. They made their entrance to appreciative applause, newlyweds, still glowing, Manhattan's newest power couple. Elena smiled and performed and let Victor's hand on her back guide her through conversations about art and architecture and charitable giving. Halfway through the evening, Vanessa Hartley appeared at their table, her smile sharp enough to draw blood. Elena, Victor, congratulations on your marriage. So sudden, so romantic. Vanessa's tone suggested neither quality was complimentary. My father was just commenting on how interesting the timing was. 2 weeks after Elena's very public breakup with Nathan. Your father comments on many things, Victor said pleasantly. Most of them are relevant to anyone's actual life. Vanessa's smile tightened. He also mentioned some concerns about financial irregularities in several real estate transactions. Apparently, the NYPD has been asking questions. The NYPD asks many questions. Rarely do they find actual answers. Victor's expression was utterly calm. But please, give your father my regards, and let him know that his attempt to pressure Morrison and Associates into withdrawing from the Harrison Building project was unsuccessful. In fact, it made me more interested in ensuring the project succeeds spectacularly. The color drained from Vanessa's face. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you don't. Just like you don't know about the calls your father made to the Planning Commission, or the pressure applied to Harrison Development Group, or the lovely rumor campaign suggesting Elena's professional judgment is compromised by personal drama. Victor's smile was pleasant and absolutely terrifying. But I know about all of it, and I've been very busy ensuring appropriate consequences. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Your family tried to destroy my wife's career. I take that personally. Victor stood, offering his hand to Elena. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have more interesting people to talk to. They walked away, leaving Vanessa standing alone, her calculated confidence visibly shaken. Elena waited until they were out of earshot before speaking. What consequences? Senator Hartley's re-election campaign is about to face some uncomfortable questions about campaign finance irregularities. Nothing illegal, just complicated enough to require extensive explanation. Victor guided her toward the bar. Nathan's father is going to lose 2 board positions due to conflicts of interest that were always there but are suddenly being noticed. The planning permission they've been seeking for their Tribeca development, denied due to environmental concerns that I may have helped amplify. You're destroying them. I'm revealing character. They chose to attack you professionally. I'm simply ensuring they face appropriate consequences. Victor ordered drinks, his expression never shifting from pleasant. You defended me to Martinez and Nathan. I defend you to everyone else. That's how this works. Elena should have been horrified by the casual wielding of power, the strategic destruction of people's careers and reputations. Instead, she felt something dangerously close to gratitude. That's not in the contract, she said quietly. No, it's not. Victor handed her champagne, his dark eyes serious. A lot of what I'm feeling isn't in the contract, Elena. That's becoming a problem. Why is it a problem? Because contracts are clean, feelings are messy, and I built my entire life on keeping things clean. He touched his glass to hers, to complications we didn't anticipate and can't quite control. They drank, and Elena tasted expensive champagne and something more dangerous, the possibility that what had started as strategy was becoming something neither of them had planned for. 3 weeks later, Elena stood in Morrison and Associates' conference room presenting the revised Harrison Building plans to the development team. The design had evolved, incorporating environmental systems that would make it one of Manhattan's greenest buildings, public space that would transform the financial district's streetscape. She presented with confidence born from knowing she didn't need this project to survive. Victor's settlement terms guaranteed financial security. Patricia Chen's job offer provided alternative career paths. Elena Moore was untouchable in ways she'd never been before, and it showed in every word she spoke. Questions? She concluded, looking around the table at executives who'd once doubted her stability. James Harrison leaned forward. Mrs. Romano, this is exceptional work, even better than the original proposal. We're prepared to move forward immediately. Excellent. Elena gathered her materials, allowed herself a small smile. I'll have the complete specifications to you by Friday. After they left, Morrison appeared in the doorway, his expression complicated. Congratulations on the contract, and the marriage, and the senior partnership announcement I'm making this afternoon. He sounded like each word physically pained him. You've certainly made quite the impression. I've done good work, Richard. The impression is secondary. Elena met his eyes steadily. Though I appreciate you finally recognizing it. Victor Romano's investment in the firm certainly helped focus my attention. Victor Romano's investment gave you the resources to expand. My work gave you the reputation to attract clients like Harrison Development. Elena moved toward the door. Let's be clear about which one of us is actually building this firm's future. She left him standing in the conference room, probably still calculating how his quiet architect had developed such sharp edges. Outside, Victor's car waited at the curb. Elena slid into the back seat, exhausted but triumphant. How did it go? Victor asked, looking up from his tablet. They approved everything. Harrison Building breaks ground next month. Elena accepted the coffee he offered, perfectly made without asking. Morrison is announcing my senior partnership this afternoon. Good. You've earned it. Victor set aside his work, gave her his full attention. I have news too. Detective Martinez closed the investigation. Insufficient evidence, case dropped. She's moving on to other targets. Elena felt something tight in her chest release. That's over? That particular investigation is over. There will be others, but Martinez specifically is done harassing us. Victor's smile was slight. Turns out her supervisor got very interested in why she was spending so much time on a case with no evidence. Someone may have made a call suggesting she focus on actual crimes. You made a call. I protected my interests, which include protecting you. Victor's hand found hers, the gesture becoming familiar. We've been married 5 weeks. Only 19 more to go until the contract expires. Something cold settled in Elena's stomach at the reminder. 19 weeks until their arrangement ended, until the carefully constructed partnership dissolved back into separate lives. Right, she said. 19 weeks. Unless, Victor's thumb brushed across her knuckles. Unless we renegotiate. Renegotiate what? The terms, the timeline, the nature of the arrangement. Victor looked uncharacteristically uncertain, his usual precision failing him. I know the contract specifies 6 months. Clean divorce, no complications. But what if I wanted complications? Elena's heart was suddenly beating too fast. What kind of complications? The kind where this isn't just strategy anymore. Where I'm not protecting you because it serves my interests, but because the thought of you being hurt makes me violent. Victor's grip on her hand tightened. The kind where you're not staying because of the settlement terms, but because you actually want to be here. Victor, that's not... We agreed. I know what we agreed. I wrote the contract, Elena. 6 months, clean exit, mutual benefit, without emotional entanglement. His dark eyes were intense in the car's dim interior. But somewhere between the gallery opening and the NYPD interviews and watching you tell Nathan Cole exactly what he is, I stopped being able to separate the performance from what I actually feel. Elena couldn't breathe. This wasn't supposed to happen. They'd had rules, boundaries, carefully negotiated terms specifically designed to prevent this kind of complication. You're confusing gratitude with feeling, she managed. I've been a good partner in this arrangement. That's not the same as... Don't. Victor's voice was rough. Don't diminish what this is because it scares you. You defended me to people who matter. You stood beside me at events that bored you senseless. You trusted me when everyone else said I was dangerous. He paused. And unless I'm completely misreading signals, you feel something too, something beyond contractual obligation. He wasn't wrong. Elena had spent 5 weeks telling herself the flutter in her chest when Victor smiled was just relief at having protection. That the way his hand on her back felt like safety was just learned behavior from constant performance. That defending him to Martinez and Nathan was purely strategic. But Victor had been right about something else. When you lie long enough, truth becomes negotiable. And the truth was, Elena had stopped performing somewhere around week 3. This is insane, she whispered. We barely know each other. We know each other better than most couples married 5 years. We've negotiated business deals, handled investigations, navigated society functions, defended each other to enemies. What else is there to know? Whether this would survive without the external pressure, without the performance, the strategy, the constant need to prove something to the world. Elena pulled her hand free, needing distance to think. We built this on mutual protection. What happens when we don't need protecting anymore? Then we find out if we want each other for reasons beyond defense. Victor leaned back, giving her space. I'm not asking you to decide now. I'm just saying the contract has renegotiation clauses for a reason. We could extend the timeline, change the terms, make this something real. Elena finished. You want to make this real. I want to try. If you're willing. Victor's vulnerability was almost painful to witness. No guarantees, no promises it works. Just honest attempt at something beyond strategy. Elena looked at this man who'd protected her ruthlessly, defended her publicly, made space for her ambition without asking her to shrink. She thought about Nathan's empty promises and Morrison's political calculations, and the way the past 5 weeks had shown her exactly what partnership could look like when both people were honest about what they wanted. I need time, she said, to think about what I actually feel versus what I've been performing. Take the time. We have 19 weeks, remember? Victor's smile was slight and sad. Though fair warning, I'm going to spend those 19 weeks convincing you this is worth trying. That's not going to be easy. Nothing worth having is. Victor pulled out his phone, checked something. Speaking of which, Nathan Cole just lost his position at his father's firm. Apparently some discrepancies in client accounts were discovered. Nothing illegal, just unethical enough to require his resignation. Elena stared at him. Did you? I revealed character. What Nathan did with that opportunity was his choice. Victor's expression was utterly neutral. Consider it a wedding gift. That's a terrible wedding gift. I disagree. Watching people who tried to hurt you face consequences is extremely satisfying. Victor gestured to the driver. Where to? Your apartment or the townhouse? Elena thought about separate spaces and careful boundaries and all the rules they'd established to keep this arrangement clean. She thought about 19 weeks and renegotiation clauses, and Victor's admission that he wanted complications. The townhouse, she said. I left some things there yesterday. Victor's smile was small but genuine. Some things. Is that what we're calling it? We're calling it strategic use of space. Everything else is still under negotiation. Fair enough. Victor's hand found hers again, and Elena let it stay. Though for the record, I'm excellent at negotiations. I usually get what I want. Usually? Always. His thumb brushed her knuckles. But I'm willing to work for this one. 4 months later, Elena stood in her office at Morrison & Associates, senior partner now, her name on the door, the Harrison building rising outside her window as testimony to everything she'd built. The structure was taking shape exactly as she'd designed it, steel and glass reaching toward sky, transformation made architectural. Her phone buzzed with a text from Victor. Dinner at 8? Real question, not contractual obligation. They'd been doing this for weeks now, separating what was performance from what was genuine, testing boundaries between strategy and feeling. The 6-month contract deadline was approaching, divorce papers drawn up and ready to sign per the original terms. Neither of them had signed yet. Elena typed back. Real dinner or strategic appearance dinner? Real. Just us. No cameras, no networking, no performance. I want to take my wife to dinner because I enjoy her company. You know that's dangerous. Everything about this has been dangerous. That's what makes it interesting. Elena smiled at her phone, at the man who'd protected her ruthlessly, and then admitted he'd stopped being able to separate protection from feeling. They'd spent 4 months carefully dismantling the walls they'd built, discovering whether the partnership they'd constructed for strategy could survive without external threat. Turned out it could. More than survive. It thrived. 8 works, she confirmed, but I'm choosing the restaurant. Your taste is too expensive for casual dinner. My taste is impeccable, thank you. But fine, you choose. I'll pretend to be scandalized by whatever reasonably priced establishment you select. That's very generous of you, Mr. Romano. I'm a generous man, Mrs. Romano. You're still figuring that out. Elena pocketed her phone and looked out at the Harrison building's rising frame. 6 months ago, she'd been engaged to Nathan Cole, believing in promises that turned out to be performance. She'd been humiliated publicly, her career threatened, her future uncertain. Now she was senior partner at a major firm, legally married to a man who'd been honest about every aspect of their arrangement, rebuilding her life on foundations of mutual respect rather than empty romance. Her mother had been right. Marriage was always complicated. The question was whether the complications were worth it. Elena looked at her wedding ring, the bands that marked both contractual obligation and something more complicated, and knew her answer. That evening, Elena met Victor at a small Italian restaurant in Brooklyn, the kind of place with checkered tablecloths and wine served in water glasses. He looked almost uncomfortable in the casual setting, his usual precision slightly off balance. "This is," he glanced around, "not what I expected." "You wanted real. This is real. Actual Italian food, not performance art disguised as cuisine." Elena slid into the booth across from him. "Can you handle it?" "I'll try to survive the trauma of affordable dining." Victor's smile was genuine, though I reserve the right to take you somewhere unnecessarily expensive later as compensation. They ordered without looking at menus, Victor somehow knowing exactly what Elena would want despite never having discussed her food preferences. 4 months of dinners and events and shared space had taught them each other's rhythms in ways the contract had never specified. "The contract expires in 2 weeks," Victor said after their wine arrived. "We should probably discuss what happens next." "Should we?" Elena sipped wine that was perfectly good despite costing less than Victor usually spent. "I thought you were going to spend 19 weeks convincing me to renegotiate." "I did. I have. But the decision is still yours." Victor's expression was serious. "I can have the divorce papers finalized by Friday. Settlement transferred, NDA enforced, clean separation exactly as specified. No hard feelings, no complications." "Is that what you want?" "What I want is irrelevant if you don't want the same thing." Victor's hand found hers across the table. "I meant what I said 5 weeks ago, Elena. I want complications. I want to try making this real, but only if you're willing, only if you actually feel something beyond strategic partnership." Elena looked at their joined hands, at the wedding rings that had started as performance and become something more. She thought about the past 6 months, the protection, the honesty, the way Victor had made space for her to be ambitious and angry and uncompromising. She thought about how his smile when he looked at her had changed from calculated to genuine. How the performance had become habit, had become preference. How somewhere between strategy and feeling, she'd stopped being able to tell the difference. "I'm willing," she said quietly, "to try, to renegotiate, to see if this works without the contract forcing us together." Victor's relief was visible and immediate. Yeah, though I have terms." Elena squeezed his hand. "Real marriage, not performance. Separate careers but shared life. Honesty about complications when they arise. And absolutely no more strategic destruction of my enemies unless I specifically request it. That last one is going to be difficult." "I'm serious, Victor. I need to fight my own battles sometimes." "I know, but watching people hurt you makes me violent, and that's not going to change." Victor's expression was fierce. "I can promise to ask permission before destroying anyone. Is that acceptable?" "I suppose it'll have to be." Elena couldn't help smiling. "What about your terms?" "Stay. Keep choosing me. Let me keep choosing you." Victor's thumb brushed across her knuckles. "Everything else is negotiable." Those are surprisingly simple terms for a man who usually negotiates complex contracts. The complex ones never work. Simple, clear, honest. That's how you build something that lasts. Victor pulled out his phone, pulled up a document. "Speaking of which, I had Marcus draft new terms. Not a contract this time, just partnership agreement. No end date, no exit penalties, just mutual commitment to trying." Elena read through the document, found it surprisingly brief compared to the original contract. Shared assets, mutual support, commitment to honesty, provisions for if things ended badly but hoped they wouldn't. It was more like wedding vows than legal document. "You want to actually try being married," she said. "I want to actually try being married to you specifically. There's a difference." Victor pocketed his phone. "But if that's too much too fast, we can extend the current contract. Give it another 6 months with built-in exit." "I don't want an exit clause." Elena surprised herself with the certainty. "I want to try, really try, No safety net, no strategic timeline, just two people figuring out if partnership becomes more than strategy. Victor's smile was brilliant and rare. Yeah? Yeah. Though, for the record, you're terrible at being casual. This dinner in Brooklyn was supposed to convince me you can handle normal, and you've already checked your phone 3 times. Business emergency. There's always a business emergency. That's part of what I'm signing up for. Elena raised her wine glass. To complications we chose instead of ones we fell into. To choosing each other for terrible reasons that turned into good ones. Victor touched his glass to hers. And to my wife, who's brilliant and terrifying in equal measure. To my husband, who's ruthless and protective in ways that should scare me but don't. Elena drank, tasting cheap wine and expensive possibilities. Think we can actually make this work? Honestly, no idea. We're terrible at this. Victor's expression was soft in the restaurant's dim light. But I'm willing to fail spectacularly trying if you are. That's the most romantic thing you've ever said to me. I'm very romantic. You just haven't been paying attention. Their food arrived. Actual Italian cooking, the kind that reminded Elena of family dinners and simpler times. They ate and talked about architecture and business and the completely normal complications of building a life together. No performance, no cameras, no need to convince anyone of anything. Just two people who'd started with strategy and ended up somewhere more honest. Later that night, back at the Brooklyn townhouse that had become home, Elena found Victor in his study reviewing contracts. She leaned against the doorframe, watching him work with the focused intensity that had first attracted her attention. "Come to bed," she said. Victor looked up, surprised. "It's barely 11. "I know, but I'm tired of separate bedrooms and careful boundaries." Elena moved into the room. "We're trying real marriage, remember? That includes actually sharing space." "Elena, we don't have to." The contract specified separate. "The contract expired 2 hours ago. We're operating on new terms now." She took his hand, pulled him to standing. "So come to bed. Real married couples share rooms. We might as well start figuring out if we can stand each other in the morning." Victor let himself be led upstairs, his expression caught between hope and uncertainty. In the bedroom that had been his alone, they navigated the awkward reality of sharing space without the performance of public appearances. "This is strange," he said, watching Elena hang up her dress. "This is normal. We've just been avoiding normal for 6 months." Elena pulled on one of his shirts, found it comfortable in ways that felt significant. "Get used to it. I steal shirts. That's one of my terrible habits. I leave books everywhere. I read at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep. I'm terrible at small talk before coffee." Victor pulled off his own shirt, self-conscious in ways Elena had never seen. "Fair warning. I sing in the shower. I reorganize bookshelves compulsively. I get mean when I'm hungry." Elena climbed into bed that smelled like Victor's cologne and possibility. "We're going to drive each other crazy." "Probably." Victor slid in beside her, maintaining careful distance. "Is this okay? The proximity?" "Victor, we've been legally married 6 months. I think we can handle sharing a bed." Elena turned toward him. "Though if you snore, I'm reconsidering everything." "I don't snore. I'm perfect in every way." His smile was slight in the darkness. "Thank you for choosing this, for choosing me. Thank you for making it possible to choose." Elena settled against his shoulder, found it fit perfectly. "Now go to sleep. We have breakfast with my mother tomorrow, and she's going to interrogate you about your intentions." "My intentions are honorable, mostly." "Liar. But you're my liar now." Elena closed her eyes. "Good night, husband. Good night, wife." Elena drifted towards sleep, listening to Victor's heartbeat, steady and sure, thinking about buildings that started as blueprints and became structures, relationships that started as contracts and became partnerships. Everything worthwhile required foundation work, careful planning, honest assessment, willingness to build towards something larger than immediate needs. She and Victor had started with transaction and discovered trust, started with performance and found partnership, started with 6 months and chose forever, or at least the attempt at it. Morning would bring complications, breakfast with her mother, board meetings, the Harrison building rising toward completion, the endless negotiations of actually being married. But Elena had learned something important over the past 6 months. Complications were only problems if you faced them alone. With Victor Romano, ruthless and protective and surprisingly gentle in unexpected moments, Elena was beginning to believe complications could be opportunities instead. 6 months later, almost exactly 1 year after Nathan Cole had destroyed her life at Le Bernardin, Elena stood in the same restaurant holding Victor's hand and wearing a different ring. Not the strategic emerald-cut diamond, but a simple platinum band inscribed with words only they understood. Complications chosen, not feared. They'd come here deliberately, reclaiming the space where her humiliation had become catalyst. The maitre d' remembered her, his expression complicated with recognition. "Ms. Moore, Mrs. Romano. Welcome back." "Thank you." Elena looked around the dining room that had once witnessed her destruction. "We'd like our table. The corner one, if it's available." It was. Of course it was. Victor Romano's reservations were always honored. They sat in the same seats where Nathan had ended their engagement, where blueprints had scattered across marble floors, where Elena's future had crumbled in real time while Manhattan's elite watched. "Are you sure about this?" Victor asked quietly. "We don't have to prove anything." "I'm not proving anything. I'm replacing a terrible memory with a better one." Elena squeezed his hand. "Besides, the Dover Soul here is supposed to be exceptional." They ordered champagne and appetizers, ate slowly while talking about the Harrison Building's completion and Morrison's latest political disaster and whether they should actually take a honeymoon now that their marriage was real rather than contractual. Halfway through dinner, Constance Cole walked past their table. She paused, seemed to consider saying something cutting, then thought better of it and continued to her own table. "She's lost weight," Victor observed. Victor Akishir. "Her son lost his job and her husband lost his board positions. Stress will do that." Elena felt no satisfaction in their destruction, just quiet acknowledgement that consequences had arrived. "Do you ever regret it? The strategic destruction?" "No, they tried to hurt you. I made sure they couldn't." Victor's expression was serious. "I know you want to fight your own battles, and I'm trying to respect that. But some battles require resources you didn't have. I did, so I used them. You're going to keep doing this, aren't you? Protecting me ruthlessly whether I want it or not." "Probably. It's one of my terrible habits." Victor smiled slightly. "Along with leaving books everywhere and being terrible at small talk before coffee. And stealing the blankets at night. That's you. I'm a perfect sleeping companion. You're a furnace who reads until 4 a.m., but you're my furnace." Elena raised her champagne glass. "To terrible habits we've learned to tolerate. To terrible habits that became endearing through proximity." Victor touched his glass to hers. "And to my wife, who's brilliant and uncompromising and still occasionally terrifies me." "Good. You should be a little terrified. Keeps you honest." Elena drank, tasting expensive champagne and expensive memories transformed. "Thank you, by the way." "For what?" "For offering me the contract when I needed it. For being honest about what you wanted. For making space for me to be angry and ambitious and uncompromising." Elena met his eyes across the table. "For choosing complications with me instead of simple transactions with someone else." "Elena, you're the least simple person I've ever met. If I wanted simple, I would never have offered you that contract." Victor's expression was soft in the restaurant's amber light. "Besides, simple is boring. Complicated keeps life interesting." Around them, the restaurant continued its elegant rhythm, conversations and laughter, glasses clinking, the controlled chaos of service. The same room where Elena had been destroyed now witnessed her triumph, her recovery, her choice to build something better from the wreckage. They finished dinner slowly, savoring each course, taking their time. When the check came, Victor pulled out the same platinum card he'd probably used a year ago when planning whatever business dinner had originally required this reservation. "Ready to leave?" he asked. "Almost." Elena stood, walked to the window where she'd once looked out at a city that felt hostile and indifferent. Now it looked like possibility, like challenge, like home. Victor joined her at the window, his hand finding the small of her back in the gesture that had become habit. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "That a year ago I thought my life was ending. Turned out it was just beginning." Elena leaned into his side. That Nathan Cole's cruelty was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it led me to you. That's unexpectedly romantic for someone who married me for strategic purposes. I married you for strategic purposes. I'm staying married to you for entirely different reasons. Elena turned to face him properly. Thank you for being honest. Thank you for being ruthless when I needed protection and gentle when I needed support. Thank you for making this real. Victor's kiss was soft and public and completely genuine, nothing like the performance kisses they'd practiced for cameras. When they separated, Elena saw several diners watching with expressions ranging from romantic approval to sharp recognition. Let them watch. Let them whisper. Let Manhattan's elite witness Elena Moore Romano, architect, senior partner, woman who'd turned public humiliation into private triumph, standing in the exact spot where she'd been destroyed, choosing love that had started as strategy and become something more honest. They walked out of Le Bernardin together, Victor's hand on her back, Elena's head high, two people who'd learned that sometimes the best relationships started with clear-eyed calculation and became something better through proximity and choice. The town car waited at the curb, but Elena paused before getting in. Let's walk, she said. It's a beautiful night. It's 40 degrees and threatening rain. I know, but we're in love and dramatic. This is what people in love do. Elena took his hand. Come on, humor your wife. My wife is going to make me catch pneumonia. But Victor fell into step beside her, his hand warm in hers. Though I suppose that's one of her terrible habits I've learned to tolerate. Along with reorganizing your bookshelves and stealing your shirts and singing in the shower. Don't forget being uncompromising and brilliant and occasionally terrifying. Those aren't terrible habits. Those are my best qualities. Elena squeezed his hand. You married me for my terrible qualities, remember? Strategic partner who wouldn't back down. I married you because you were the only person who looked at my carefully constructed life and saw straight through to what I actually was. Victor stopped walking, turned to face her under a streetlight that turned everything golden. You saw ruthless calculation and called it honest. Saw dangerous background and called it complicated rather than disqualifying. Saw performance and asked for real. That's why I married you, Elena. Not for strategy, for truth. That's the most romantic thing you've ever said to me. Again, you keep outdoing yourself. I'm competitive, even in romance. Victor pulled her close, his kiss tasting like champagne and promises kept. Let's go home, real home, where we can stop performing entirely. They caught a cab after all. Romance had limits, and hypothermia wasn't romantic, and rode through Manhattan toward Brooklyn, toward the townhouse that had become truly theirs through occupation and choice. In the back seat, Elena leaned against Victor's shoulder and thought about blueprints and buildings, foundations and frameworks, the architecture of relationships built to last. She thought about contracts that became partnerships, that became love, about strategic decisions that turned into genuine feeling. Most of all, she thought about the woman who'd collapsed outside Le Bernardin 6 months ago, broken and humiliated, and the woman she'd become, stronger, sharper, uncompromising in all the best ways. Nathan Cole had tried to destroy her. Instead, he'd freed her to become someone better. Victor Romano had offered strategic protection. Instead, he'd given her partnership and honesty and the space to be entirely herself. And Elena Moore Romano, brilliant architect and uncompromising wife, had chosen complications over safety, truth over performance, and love that started as contract and became something worth keeping. The rain started as they pulled up to the townhouse, drops catching streetlight like diamonds. Victor pulled Elena close under his jacket as they ran for the door, both of them laughing at the absurdity of it. Two people who'd married for strategy, dancing in the rain because it felt romantic. Inside, warm and dry, Victor pulled Elena into his arms properly. I love you, he said, the words still surprising despite months of building toward them. Completely. Inconveniently. In ways that make strategic planning impossible. I love you too, Elena replied, meaning it entirely. Ruthlessly, honestly, in ways that would have terrified me a year ago. Good. Victor's smile was brilliant and rare. Let's keep terrifying each other. That's how we know it's real. They climbed the stairs together toward the bedroom they'd learned to share, toward the life they were building from honesty rather than pretense. Outside, rain hammered against windows. Inside, two people who'd started with transaction discovered that sometimes the best partnerships began with clear-eyed calculation and became love through proximity, choice, and the courage to let performance become truth. Elena Moore had walked into Le Bernardin expecting romance and found betrayal. She'd accepted Victor Romano's contract expecting protection and found partnership. She'd married for strategy and discovered love. And standing in their bedroom a year after her world had shattered, Elena understood that sometimes destruction was necessary. Sometimes you had to lose everything you thought you wanted to discover what you actually needed. She'd needed honesty, partnership, someone who saw her ambition and called it strength rather than threat. She'd found all of that in Victor Romano, ruthless businessman with complicated history and surprising gentleness, who'd offered her a contract and given her a future. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for pulling me into your car that night, for offering me the deal, for all of it." "Thank you for saying yes," Victor replied, "for trusting me when you had no reason to, for choosing to stay when the contract expired, for making this real." They fell asleep tangled together, two people who'd built something lasting from unlikely foundations, who'd chosen each other for complicated reasons that had become simple through time and trust. Outside, Manhattan continued its relentless rhythm, indifferent to individual stories of destruction and recovery. But inside the Brooklyn townhouse, Elena and Victor had created something that mattered more than the city's judgment, a partnership built on honesty, protected by ruthlessness, sustained by genuine love that had started as performance and become truth. And in the morning, they would wake together and build toward whatever came next, complications and all, choosing each other again and again until the choice became as natural as breathing. That was how it worked, Elena understood now. Not fairy tales and grand gestures, but daily decisions to stay, to try, to build something worth keeping from the wreckage of what came before. She'd started with blueprints scattered on marble floors and ended with foundations strong enough to last. That was architecture. That was marriage. That was love worth fighting for. And Elena Moore Romano, who'd learned to be ruthless and gentle in equal measure, who'd transformed public humiliation into private triumph, who'd married for strategy and stayed for love. She was finally, completely home,